Boy, do I really need some new headphones. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. I am your host, Roddykat, and you can find me at Roddykat on Twitter, and you can also find me at NewsNerd on Twitter and the CB Caps on Instagram. I was wondering why that's why. And that smiling face, if you're watching the video, that is, that you see holding the hammer with the shades representing Brooklyn all day, is one
rumbling in the background.
Is one agent _70 on Twitter and Instagram.
What's up, everybody?
Where's Brooklyn at? Where Brooklyn at? Where Brooklyn at?
Probably need to just get a lightning sound effect, just kind of accent it. But
yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
All right, off you go.
And it'd be like the 9th X-Men and Thor is summoning her powers. But anyway, not with us tonight. One PC and _dirt on Twitter, Pop Culture Net on Twitter, on Twitter, popculturenetwork.com, and all those umbrella sites they're in. And the Osiris of this ish, Tim DOGG98 on Twitter, CB Chron on Twitter. That is the Comic Book Chronicles account, by the way. The Click Nation on Twitter, also theclicknation.com. That's TheKliqNation, in case you were wondering about the spelling. And of course, Comic Book Resources, where he's over there writing his face off. And you can find this here program on the Cold Slither Podcast Network, CSPN.us.
Do it today.
Indeed. You can also find this here podcast on Google Play, Apple iTunes, Spotify, and the Cold Slither Podcast Network SoundCloud page. But the one thing I also very much always neglect to say is that we record, with the exception of tonight, every Thursday night, 9:30ish p.m. on the Click Nation's YouTube channel. So if you're around that time, hey, come check us out. And with that, we will get into this week's books of the weekend. There are a lot for, mid-December, the week before Christmas.
Right, that's what makes you remember. All of a sudden, it's really not a lot because they're probably jamming a good week and a half's worth of books into this week.
Yeah, but rest assured there will probably be some next week, whether we record or not.
Sure.
So we'll stay tuned for that. For our social media channels. But again, the first book we're going to get to tonight is Annihilation Scourge Omega #1. So this is the end of that whole Annihilation Part 2 saga, I guess.
Right. It's a mini. Yeah. It's a new mini event in the tradition of the Annihilation events, involving several cosmic characters plus characters who find themselves living in the negative zone, namely Annihilus and Blastar. And in this case, just as a quick recap, a new threat has emerged, that being the Cancerverse. So in this issue, we have the heroes coming together to face the threat of the Cancerverse, and maybe not the leader, because that was sort of cleared up in this issue, where the Sentry wasn't necessarily the leader of the Cancerverse invasion of the negative zone. But at the end of the day, it was still the big, slobber knocker, to quote good old JR. There's a big always with the wrestling references, right, ladies and gentlemen? So it was the big slobber knocker to finish up this event, and things did not go very well for some of our heroes.
Well, yeah, that's true, but at the same time, it kind of worked out at the end with at least one, or with a couple, which also still begs a couple of questions in that, because we saw just to go ahead and get the spoiler out of the way, so you might as well go and ring the bell.
Ringing the bell for spoilers.
Things been going good for the people that were already in the negative first, and then we come to find out, which surprise, Nova comes back with a whole squad of folks, including a bunch of new warriors. I found that particularly interesting.
Firestar was in there too.
Huh?
Firestar was in there too.
Yeah, Firestar was in there. I was like, huh? Well, yeah, because she was a new warrior. But so those folks, and a lot of the spacefaring people that you would expect to see in a situation like this, with the exception of the Guardians of the Galaxy. But that's neither here nor there. And as Agent 70 said, it was a big knockout, drag down fight, which didn't quite go a good way for a couple of folks. One being Nova, but that seemed to be cleaned up and addressed at the end.
Right.
And seemingly it still brings up and I guess the Sentry in a certain case, because he's kind of back to where he was, sorta.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess differently. But it also bears a question, because if you weren't keeping up with this, he was weirdly joined with Silver Surfer, who is not necessarily silver anymore, but that's neither here nor there, and is intangible now. Apparently.
Right. That's what exactly what I was going to say is the Surfer's current status status quo post Silver Surfer Black has been explored a little bit in this miniseries. I remember mentioning this in the Silver Surfer issue of this miniseries of the crossover last week, I believe. So It's become more and more apparent that the Surfer has some really, and we'll see it again in the Avengers issue this week where he appears. We see more of the Surfer's current status. So we will see how long this lasts. But getting back to what you were saying.
So I say all that to say this. So the question I had about that, so he and Bob Reynolds, the Sentry, the human part of the Sentry, I guess you could say, were joined together, and they've been on this ride since that happened, which ended up with the Sentry somehow. Well, I guess it kind of makes sense given the way their merger, I guess, in the comics, whatever. Sentry ends up getting merged again, but it still kind of looks like but they are sharing the brain now. It's almost like the symbiote, which brings me to the question of to Silver Surfer Black, part of the symbiote or the symbiote matter seems to be joined with the Silver Surfer, if I read that correct. So did some of that go into the Sentry to cause this joining? I mean, I know it is not exactly that cut and dry, but like that was the question I had about that. I was like, what outside of just comics and the joining, whatever, pulling themselves together, something else was there, and does that change Silver Surfer status in at least a little bit? Because clearly he was still, blackish version of himself.
Right. My understanding though was that the reason why he went from silver to black is because he had to expend the majority of his cosmic energies at the end of that Silver Surfer Black limited series.
Well, there was that, but also remember, because Noah was he had gotten I guess, some symbiote matter or whatever in relation to that, or something happened to where that was also helping him, that was also causing him to expend his energy trying to keep from being taken over or eaten up. I don't know, whatever.
I gotta look. I've got to look that up again. I've got to take a look at those issues again.
I might be kind of misremembering something, but I feel like there was something else that was
right. Obviously, the story had to do with Null, right? Going back in time. That part, but I don't remember the whole. I don't exactly recall whether or not there was any symbiote action, with regards to the Surfer. Any sort of because I distinctly remember him burning himself out. That was the symbolism I got, and that's how he got to the state that he's in now. So
right. He was burning himself out to keep something, I guess, the symbiote matter or something else at bay, or whatever the case may be. I don't know.
Exactly. We'll have to look it up. Exactly. We forget more. We read so much, ladies and gentlemen. We forget a lot of what we've read.
And my question may be just a null issue. Regardless of this, because like I said, the main thing that was pretty much brought up into this was like, hey, the Sentry got re-emerged. Silver Surfer. Well, they said the Silver Surfer disappeared, but obviously he didn't necessarily disappear. He just left.
Exactly.
And Nova was supposed to die, but he didn't because he got resurrected, free of what ended up happening to him during the course of the story, which we won't give away. But
exactly. I mean, listen, just the notes that I typed, and you could. I don't know if you read my notes very quickly, but I was this close to writing an angry tweet or email about Matthew Rosenberg killing characters left and right.
You know what? I kind of thought about that, but I was like, wow, he just came back. You just kill him again, and where's that? But yeah, I was like, and Lockjaw, what almost happened to Lockjaw? I'm like, really? Actually, that wasn't Rosenberg, but regardless.
Right. But whatchamacallit? But the epilogue to the story kind of saved him from that.
Right.
I all in all, a pretty exciting story for me. And it's kind of a reset for the Negative Zone, kind of setting a new status quo for them.
Right.
As for the Cancerverse, no idea ever goes away forever.
Yeah.
I know you had a question about this book.
Well, I had a question about something else.
Something that happened in
right. Yeah. But yeah, outside of that, there was something else about the end. It was a clean end. He basically was just like, well, clean it up. Everything is kind of back to where it was. Everybody go home.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so the question I had was in the Beta Ray Bill Annihilation book, he kind of solved the problem by throwing his hammer at the Sentry, aka Void, whatever the case may be, to push him back because the Sentry Void was trying to invade the positive Spider-Verse. So, being that he's the Thor, his enchantments are the Thor of old, he reverted back to his old self, and then he and Lockjaw had to go to the Negative Zone to retrieve his hammer, which he did in this issue. But I'm sitting here like, well, as soon as he stepped into the Negativeverse, could he not have just called his hammer like Thor normally does? And I felt like he did that in that Beta Ray Bill issue. So why couldn't he do that when?
What's weird is, and I definitely follow your thinking on this. What's weird is generally if under the old enchantment, if Mjolnir, and in this case Stormbreaker, was away or out of Thor Beta Ray Bill's hands for too long, it reverted to a walking stick.
Right.
And the fact that it didn't revert to a walking stick is, I think, what threw you off, because then you think he would be able to summon it to him in hammer form. Right. But that's my guess, but I'm less inclined to give Rosenberg the benefit of the doubt. Is that I think it was just a gaffe. Because I think the principle is still sound that that Bill in his alien form, in his humanoid alien form, isn't able to call Stormbreaker to him like that if he's been reverted from Beta Ray Bill form.
Which seems kind of like an oversight, but I get it.
Well, my point is, if that had been drawn as a walking stick, you would have been like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Exactly.
Yeah. I agree with you on that, because and I don't even know if that part was still that part is still, because obviously we don't see him walking around in his humanoid form that often.
It's been a while since I've seen him in humanoid form. So
I don't even know if that's how. I assume that is what actually happens, but but anyway, so
right. It's a little thing that I noticed. I kind of banged on. I kind of knocked up against as well. So
right. So, but otherwise, that it was a pretty decent issue going into it. Like I said, the little nitpickings here and there about it, and the big fight was what it was, but it just felt like it was like, well, this is just nice little. Let's just go ahead and nice and neatly clean all of this back up again, and didn't really have there wasn't anything about this that's going to reverberate any further, and not necessarily saying that it should, but
it definitely got everyone interacting with the Surfer. It definitely got everyone kind of interacting.
Yes.
Say again?
At least of the cosmic folks, anyway.
Right. Or I mean, when I say everyone, I think of the people that he would normally run across in the Marvel universe. What I was going to just say is that it put the FF back into this world as well. It put the new Warriors a little, sort of back on the map.
They just showed up. They didn't even give them any, like, they didn't never give them any quote unquote time. They just like showed up and you notice them and you see them there, but they didn't like, hey, we're a team again and here we go. Not saying that should be the case, but
right,
they just were there, which I thought was kind of out of place. Not necessarily, because I get it, because Nova was involved, and it's like, hey, if he was going to call anybody, he's going to call his all the old people. So that wasn't even a problem. It was just like, that's just fun to see them amongst these cosmic folks.
Sure. Although it's funny, I was about to say it's funny that you see Rage of all people, I think, is in there,
right?
But you don't see, and you see Cosmo, but you don't see, and it looks like the Starjammers in the back
are there, yeah.
But you don't see, you see a little bit of the Shi'ar Imperial Guard, but no, you see Smasher, but not Cannonball. It's like, hey, doesn't Cannonball like come? I guess he's babysitting.
Yeah, right. Well, so that's what I thought about the Starjammers. It's like, well, clearly, because we know they left them, which I didn't get the chance to read New Mutants, but I think it's not even on them on this week's issue anyway.
Yeah, I was about to say last week. Oh, is it this week's issue of New Mutants?
Yeah.
Dang, I missed that too.
I know there was so much like there was like 4 or 5 books that came. Well, excuse me, like 2 or 3 books that came out last week on the mutant front that came out last week.
Oh,
that came out again this week.
Oh yeah.
Which we talked about that at the end of the show last week, off camera. But this is a week, y'all. This is
it's the Christmas week. That's the thing, because next week they are shipping, but it's only like 8 or 9 books. So
right, and we talked about it. We get it. Like, sure, they didn't want to, because normally these books would have been like shipped double bi-weekly, and being that next week is what it is, they didn't want to put those books out next week. I kind of get that, I guess.
But it's a bit of a heavy. It's a bit of a load to bear for us in terms of reading what we need to read and staying up on certain storylines. So I guess we'll have a little bit of time to catch up between now and next week.
Yeah, and the other part of that is like, well, knowing that we're going to have some X books kind of having some, not necessarily stoppings, but having some delays coming up. It was like they could have just held off. They could have just held off the
beast it out.
Yeah. But that's neither here nor there. Anyway, Annihilation scored Omega #1. I think we're pretty much
that's enough of that. It was a fun little event crossover. Nothing universe changing, really.
Which actually brings me to something I was going to say before we started talking about this. So these little events kind of call back to older events. Some seeming to be, you may or may not agree with me, in more name of the event than actual purpose, or like this one. Obviously, there was more surrounding Annihilation because of who was involved.
Oh, it's more closely related to the
exactly, as opposed to some of
as
opposed to some of the other events that they've been bringing back up, and that's kind of just tangentially revolving around the event. One such event we can argue is 2099. But
I thought you were gonna refer to Atlantis Attacks, because that's also
we're gonna get to that. We're gonna also get to that.
All right.
Yeah. After this, because first of all, let's go to Amazing Spider-Man number 38.
Sure. Was it 36?
30. Wait, is it 36? Or I might have wrote that down wrong. You might be right. It might be 36 actually.
Okay. So yeah, it's 36.
Okay, yeah, I wrote down 38. That was my fault. But yeah, I'm trying to skip.
You read the 2099 Omega issue, right? The finale.
Yeah, we will get to that in a second.
All right, so which comes first in time, because I did not read that Omega issue.
Amazing, that which is why I brought up Amazing, because I think that comes up first, and then 29 Omega comes up. But it doesn't matter, because neither one really has much to do with the other.
Okay.
So with the stuff that's going on with Amazing, well, mostly I should say not doesn't come. So okay, so there was the whole Doom thing. Doom kind of had New York, whatever. After his,
the attempted assassination of Dr. Doom.
Right. And a lot of that gets like a lot of behind the scenes kind of monologuing behind that get borne out here, or get like we see what the real what the real deal behind that is, what they hope to gain behind that comes out here great. But that has nothing to do with the other 2099 books that much. Like the only other thing we see is Peter's interacting with Leela, who is the AI for Miguel O'Hara, and this other thing that his classmate do, and that's like, that's he basically is, as my notes say, is doing a Doctor Strange of the MCU. So he's running through all the timelines, seeing where he could win against Doctor Doom, because Doctor Doom took over the city. And he finally found the one that actually works that they went into. But again, some of the other stuff that's behind the scenes that was happening, and of course Doom just kind of stormed off because because of what had happened, which was outside of his control, that he didn't want to admit to, that Spidey knows nothing about. And the behind the scenes machinations behind all of that. That's what it is. Spidey's going his own way. We see a part with Miguel O'Hara, that if you've read the Spider-Man 2099 book from last week, there's a part of that connects to this. Outside of that, none of it really connects with much else going on, with the exception of the next book we'll get to. But even then, like all these one shots really had no bearing off of each other, including the main book that started, which was Amazing Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man.
Interesting.
Which is why I said some of these events are more tangentially, related to the event than what else. Now, granted, there is a little bit more in the Omega issue to parse out than this issue of Amazing Spider-Man.
Okay.
But even then, it's like, well, okay, what does the stuff Amazing have to do with the stuff that was going on in 2099? Still, because Amazing was the catalyst for all of this. And sure, you could see the catalyst, but you thought there would be a little bit more closer tied than what was actually going on. Maybe even a little bit more Spider-Man involvement of either one. Because now that I think about it, there's no Spider-Man 2099 that shows up ever, realistically. So it's weird. Wait, so you didn't read Amazing, right?
I read Amazing, but I did not read the 2099 Omega issue.
Gotcha.
So I can attest to the fact that it was a very disjointed read if all you read were the Amazing issues. So I'm going to have to track back and read the 2099 crossover, or at least the event issues, maybe not the one shots, to see what exactly happened in this event, because it sounds to me that, as you mentioned, none of those one shots really had much to do with,
but the one shot are pretty much the event books, though.
No, that I understand, but you're telling me that none of them have any bearing on each other.
Basically,
right? So, I mean, sometimes you can get away with reading the main event books, but it seems like the event here, much like the event in Annihilation, left those one shots as somewhat required reading, because, like you said, those are the event titles. So
we can transition from that to go into 2099 Omega #1.
Right.
And
I want you to just tell me about it and let me know what exactly happened, because, as I said, having only read the Amazing Spidey issues, it was just super disjointed, and I didn't understand. I understood what Spidey was trying to do, but otherwise,
see, everything that Spidey had to do had nothing to do with this other stuff.
Right.
Nothing. So basically what happened, so it is in 2099, you meet what we see to be Miguel O'Hara, the version we would know that's in 2099, and he's going through, well, first off, you would need to read the Spider-Man 2099 one shot. And that kind of fills into what goes into some of this, because basically what ends up happening is he meets himself in the future. And by that, so I want to say it was Spider-Man. It was either one of I can't remember what book it was. It might have been in actual Amazing Spider-Man this week. We see at the end of it, Yeah, Omega. We see Miguel at the end of it. Remember, we see Miguel at the end of it. And he's like on the beach or whatever the case may be,
Right.
and see somebody that looks like Leela.
Right.
So apparently, that is him. In Omega, it is still him, aged up. So basically, it's like old Cap coming back at the end of Endgame. So that Omega hero shows up on Omega, and I guess that's the one true one. But this new one is kind of an offshoot one, some kind of way. It's weird. So basically, there's talk of whether 2099, the old series, actually happened, but it kind of did and kind of didn't, because Omega is basically saying that, okay, yeah, that kind of happened, but then something happened along the way that kind of maybe made it not happen, thanks to Doom or whatever the case may be. So the catalyst from that is like the old Miguel is basically telling the new Miguel, well, you have to be the Spider-Man now. So basically, it's almost like it's a mix of Endgame and also a mix of, like, say, Batman Beyond, where follow me on this. Bruce Wayne is kind of was doing the thing, except for was doing this thing, and then Terry McGinnis comes along, except for in this case it's just the same person, just two different age versions of them, weirdly enough. And the older version says you have to become Spider-Man because this world needs it, because so you basically need to usher in a new age of heroes like the old 2099 did. It might sound a little bit confusing,
I understand.
but at the same time, it's like, okay, that's all that is all said and done. And we still don't see him in the costume, and we still don't see a young Miguel kind of doing it, but we see him kind of getting to that point. Like, it's probably, if they're gonna wait, is there gonna be a 29 book coming, right? I can't remember. I thought there was.
Oh, I have to look at the solicitations again.
Yeah, I can't remember. So if there was coming, then this might actually lead into that. But regardless, this was pretty much the lead up into going to that, even though I don't remember them even saying at the beginning of the book.
Gotcha.
But if all of that was to lead into that, they did a very poor job, because one, like I said, the Amazing Stuff has nothing to do with these one shots. Now, yes, all of those they did have panels alluding to, that showed that showed stuff that happens or at least showed panels of the other people in the other books. And the main plot was basically, hey, Dr. Doom's got Uatu hold up and wants them to see the future for him, or see, basically do Watcher stuff for him, but he's got him held up. And that part right there was like, okay, that was a thing, but why wasn't that a thing throughout the whole thing and not just the one or two books? There's the Alpha book and the Omega book. That stuff kind of came into play. But it was used nowhere else, not even in the one shots, not even Amazing. And that's why I said this is disjointed, because like, if you're going to do an event like that, shouldn't all of that stuff kind of bear on each other? They didn't. So the Doctor Doom stuff was what it was. The Watu, who, why is he even there? Because he's dead. Well, he's doubly dead now, spoiler, but
right.
But that whole stuff was like, okay, that's one thing. And then you had to think with Miguel going back in time in the first place, and then the splitting of time, however, to where there's two Miguels now, in-game style, and the one-shots being whatever they were, which, again, they do kind of allude to some stuff that's in the one-shots, but none of them have any bearing on anything else. So I say all that to say this is that 2099 was very much if you're just into that and you want to, hey, if you're a fan of 2099 and you want to check those out, of the old 2099, you want to check those out, good. But there's no connective tissue to that and Amazing.
Gotcha.
Enough to even say, hey, this was worth reading all of them.
Right. You basically saying that you don't necessarily have to track everything down. It's not worth it.
Doesn't seem like it. Like I said, unless you're a fan of the 2099 in the first place, and even then, like there's definitely shades of old, of the stuff from the past there, but only shades.
Gotcha.
So it's enough to say it is enough in those one shots to say, hey, this is 2099 related, which is all fair. But the overall event, it's not worth it.
Gotcha.
And it's kind of sad, but at the same time, like, I don't even know what they were even thinking. So, but yeah, for scientific purposes, you sir may want to check out some of the stuff. But at the same time, I don't know if you really do.
Sure. Okay. Alrighty. Next up,
Yeah.
you want to just transition to Agents of Atlas number 5?
Yes, indeed. Speaking of folks,
right? We were talking about events, older events that are being resurrected in a sense and being given new life with new versions of these tie-ins, new versions of these crossovers with the same name. Atlantis Attacks is one of them, and we had noticed that the events of this Agents of Atlas book from the very beginning seem to be leading towards some interaction that we find in this issue was going to happen anyway, right? And that is some interaction with Atlantis, and a lot of that had to do with some of the backup stories in Arrow, which deal with both Arrow and Wave, and that all sort of came to a head here in the Agents of Atlas book, where the city, the Pan-Asian city of Pan, is at the center of an investigation by the Agents of Atlas, and lots of secrets long held have been revealed in this issue.
Okay.
Secrets held both by Michael. I don't want to call him Mike Nguyen, because that's actually the name of a comedian based here in New York right now.
That's the name. Maybe that's where they got it from.
But the villainous corporate head. One villainous corporate head is Michael Nguyen, and the other one is Jimmy Woo, the head of Atlas.
Right. So yeah, all that, like you just said, all that kind of comes together because we found out the connection between we found out there is a connection between apparently Jimmy Woo and Mike Gwynn, and the connection to all the dragons that are showing up. Which I guess, if you thought about it, when we saw the dragon that was with Jimmy, probably could have put 2 and 2 together, but we didn't necessarily know in what way,
right?
Until this issue.
And what was funny about this issue is that all of the little things that maybe didn't make a lot of sense were tied together in one neat bow. There really were a lot of little connections based on, and minor spoilers here, there is a dragon, supernatural, that is being held by, what is their company called? But the people behind Pan and the organization run by Michael Nguyen, and this dragon's magical properties is what basically helps them create this Pan, the place called Pan, and this connection between all of the Pan-Asian countries. There is an effort to try to shut it down, and what Amadeus and the other Agents of Atlas want to do is basically stop all this from happening, and to free this the special dragon. And Mike Nguyen is basically using, at the end of the day, using
leverage.
What's already been, exactly what has already been established as the benefits of Pan, to try to I guess it is the best form of leverage to try to justify its existence. That's what I was getting at,
right?
As opposed to destroying it all and bringing it all down around their heads. So we find out that Jimmy Woo has been not instrumental, but has been in the loop of what Pan is, or has been for a while now. And we ultimately find out the sourcing of this dragon. I feel like I hear Fred and George Weasley in the back of my head every time I say it. Shout out to Harry Potter.
Not to J.K. Rowling at this point, but anyway,
I was gonna say, that's a whole other thing that I discovered online this weekend. I was just like, "What is happening?"
yeah,
But,
your faves always disappoint you.
you know, but
Yeah.
but yeah, like I said, dragons, and just to tie it all together, we find out how we're tying it all into Atlantis Attacks.
They managed to definitely, like somewhat, I guess you could say definitely tie it to Atlantis Attacks. I'm like, okay, sure. That's I didn't think about that, and I'm like, okay, it's all there now. I don't know. It's just like, because one part is just like, well, that's a weak way to do it, but at the same time, no, it's not really. I'm like, okay, were you expecting it? No.
No, exactly. I was just like, well, that, you know what? It made sense, but at the same time, it was very much a surprise.
Right. But especially coming out of, well, I guess we'll go ahead and get into Invaders next, because,
I didn't read it.
Oh, shit. Okay, well.
You can spoil it. It's okay. I'm going to read it probably before I go.
Well, I'll step around it, because I can pretty safely say it has nothing to do with Atlantis Attacks, which was what we thought about,
That's surprising.
We were saying we're coming into this last issue of the issue, but we'll get to that in a second.
That is surprising.
Yeah, it very much was. I mean, you could probably make something out of the last page, but there is no real way to do that. But anyway, back to this though, real quick. I do love the one little thing I love, like Silk being the voice of reason, continuing to be the voice of reasoning for Amadeus, and I guess in tow the group. Amadeus has starting to put on his big boy pants and be the leader.
Right.
It's starting to show up, and I don't know why. Maybe it's just me. There was a panel that kind of. And maybe it's just me suggesting.
Well, she's really. Well, I was about to say, just hold that thought. I've mentioned this before in relation to this book. She's really the elder statesman of the team, or the second most elder statesman, because Shang-Chi would be first, and then it's her, because she's technically Peter Parker's age.
True.
So,
right. But
the reason that she would be, even though she hasn't been in the hero game very long, she would be one of the voices of reason.
Right, but I'm saying that is because if you think about her book and her coming back into the fold, or her coming into the fold in the first place, and her with the Kimmy whatever, like coming out of the bunker situation that he was coming through, and what she was going through when she first kind of came out, for her coming from there to here, still keeping a little bit of that, but not in the same way. But she's kind of has been out in the world for a little while, so she kind of knows she knows better now, or she's pretty much gotten that stuff out of her sister. She's kind of into the world now. But that's why I say it is kind of amusing to see her as the voice of reason, knowing where she's coming from, where she's come from to this, but still being herself, which is always great to see. So it's kind of amusing. Trying to remember if there was something else I was going to say about this book. No, I think that's pretty much it though. Because there is really nothing else that kind of comes up in this book outside of like, hey, guess what? It goes straight into pretty much Atlantis Attacks.
Right. And basically, yeah, I was about to say, it's really, it doesn't necessarily tie off all of the loose ends. It doesn't necessarily solve all of the mysteries in this book. What it does do is lead us into the crossover. What it also does do is probably lay the foundation for yet another limited series, which may be the fate of this team, of this book, where we're not going to get an ongoing, we're going to get multiple miniseries covering separate, various arcs.
Which is kind of sad, because it's basically the Mighty Avengers all over again during the various events that it came in and out of, and I'm hoping that's not the case. But yeah, you're probably right.
That's what it seems to me. That's what I at least at this point. This is now the second Agents of Atlas miniseries to end, and I don't know how many issues Atlantis Attacks is going to be comprised of, but I foresee coming out of it another Agents of Atlas miniseries.
I'm glad you do, because I don't, but I would like to. I would hope that is the case, but I feel like I don't
because the story of Pan isn't done.
That's true. You're right, and on that, but they could also be something where Atlas Attacks kind of deals with that,
possibly.
So we don't know until we get to that point, which, hey, it won't be until next month. So, But yeah, I enjoyed this issue. It was pretty good. That being said, I thought it was well done that they put all that together like they did. So now I guess we will go into Invaders real quick, and I won't spoil it for you since you're going to read it.
Sure.
But this is the last issue of this series, and it basically, I don't want to say wraps up, but but for lack of a better word, it kind of does wrap up what's been going on for the most part. Like the bigger thing with the whole, the whole plot that mentions ultimately responsible for, and by proxy, Namor, which, Namor in the beginning of the book kind of goes back to his old ways of blaming other folks, but at the same time, the book in itself is about memories and basically about them being the team that was forged during a war, and it kind of ends on that note to a point, because things happen. There's a big fight that gets dealt with, and then there's the dealing with, the aftermath of that being, hey, what happens to Mansion or whatever his name is, and Namor's part with that, and that gets kind of dealt with. And then at the end, there's kind of like a not necessarily an first Avengers type shawarma meeting, but there is like a meeting of the Invaders minus Namor, and they talk about what basically happened, and it just kind of ends there with them talking about Namor and kind of saying, hey, regardless of everything that happened, he's still Namor, he's still one of us kind of situation. And then it just ends on kind of Namor sitting there on his throne like Conan. At the end of the Conan movie. If you're of a certain vintage, you know that reference. If not, I'm too sorry for you. Go read it. Go watch it.
What is best in life?
Exactly.
But what I was going to say is I didn't take a look at I think it's the March solicitations came out recently.
Yes, that's correct.
And I did see, one of the trusty news services that we look at, or maybe not so trusty, decided to put out, like the 10 things that we learned from the 2020 the March 2020 solicitations, the Marvel solicitations. And my understanding is that Namor is going to be part of a bad guy team.
Yes.
Coming
on that, so we'll get to that. Yeah.
Right. So it's going to be interesting to see where he goes from here.
But at the same time, given that Atlantis Attack is a upcoming thing, and technically he's not on the side of right on that part, but we don't know, how that's going to play out either.
Exactly.
Fully. But yeah, he's still, regardless of how they try to paint him at the end of this book, given what's coming up next, doesn't really say that much great good for him. So it was like whatever, all the whatever they said at the end of the issue was like, okay, yeah, but this other stuff is coming up, and that's not gonna paint him any better light,
right?
Regardless of what you say. So that's pretty much it. Like I said, yeah, there's no tie to Atlantis Attacks in this one, so it's kind of a disappointment, because I was expecting, like both of us were really expecting there to be some sort of tie. You would think, but not such luck.
I would have expected it, but
yeah. So I guess if we're done with that, from there, you want to throw something out?
Sure. I mean, what else? We read a couple things in common, and I guess
our usual stuff.
What I would bring up is either Avengers or Black Panther.
Avengers.
All right. So Avengers number 28. There are a couple of really great moments in this. It's actually a pretty action-packed issue.
Yeah.
According to my notes, it reminds me to think worthy thoughts when I'm trying to pick up the hammer. That was a great moment.
That was funny.
That was a great moment, because the issue opens with three specific former heralds of Galactus coming together.
One of which we previously mentioned.
Right. Silver Surfer, or the not so Silver Surfer, as everyone is wont to talk about nowadays in the comics. These three former heralds have come together to take on the Star Brand, and now they're part of the mission. They're part of the Avengers mission now, and part of the monkey and the wrench. They are the wrench that has been thrown into the works.
Yes. Although I'm sure that's going to change with whatever happens.
Right.
There'll be a dust up, and then something's going to happen, and then especially once they finally meet the Star brand, which hasn't happened yet, by the way.
Right. So what I was referring to earlier is a scene between Captain America and the now brood Thor. As we mentioned in a previous show, in the last issue, Thor has been infected with a brood egg, and he has been slowly transforming, despite the fact that he's got the whole god stamina and god healing properties. If Wolverine can fight it off, why can't Thor, right?
Right. I wonder if they're actually going to show like there's still some missing members of the team, so I'm sure we'll see what happened there. I wonder if we're ever going to go back to that time jump to when that actually happened. I mean, it may seem unnecessary at this point, but I don't know, unless there's a reason why it was skipped and they're going to come back to it. I would hope.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Aaron is kind of decent for doing stuff like that, so I would be surprised if he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, okay, so I assume at some point we're gonna see what happened with that and what happened what caused the mission to go sideways.
Sure. Yeah, it will probably be described in another mini flashback, the way this issue started with the little mini flashback.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly laughed out loud. When I read that bit about think worthy thoughts. Baseball.
And the line before that is, where the line before is like, this was a lot easier.
Yeah.
The last time that happened. And I was thinking, is he talking about Endgame or?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of cool to see, this is just another kind of notation for the times that Captain America has done this. So,
although he did not change into a Thor, like a lot of people pick up the hammer will have classically have done, but at the same time, we're not gonna, that's a point we don't have to worry.
Right.
I was kind of expecting that to happen, to be honest. It was like, okay, he picks it up and then poof, he's turns into a Thor.
I thought
kind of depressed, not depressed, but I was kind of bummed out about that.
Right.
So, and then of course, Brood Thor, they have that little thing, and then that gets dealt with, and they're just, oh, nothing, no, they just swept under the rug.
Sure.
And no, it's all you, buddy. You're still mine.
Exactly.
So, but then we get to the other part of that where we meet up with we go back to where Ghost Rider, Black Widow, and the ailing Blade is running through space in a charger.
I was about to say, just before you hold on to that thought, we have Cap changing uniforms into Corsair all of a sudden.
Oh yeah, which he gets called by Carol, Captain Corsair.
Right.
I'm like,
I was about to say, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. Yeah, that was a good point to bring it up. That was kind of funny. Since they are riding around
in an old version of the Starjammer.
Yeah, and they used Starjammer ship, so I guess it makes sense. But yeah, so Black Widow, Ghost Rider, Blade on the run from Silver Surfer for some reason. Well, we know the reason why, because they're pretty much at the same thing, but Silver Surfer is trying to basically keep them from their task. And during the course of this, we find out that hey, there's more to our baby boy Rider than there might be a little bit more to our baby boy Rider coming up or something. I don't know, because basically he ends up getting brief control of the Surfer's surfboard, which makes him the ultimate Rider at this point, as far as I'm concerned. But it was only briefly, and then at the end of the issue, which I'm like, all right, this is good. Black Widow was like, hey, we need some heavy hitters, and Robbie's like, oh no, give me a second, I'll go back down. And she's like, nope, give me my luggage. Which, how in the world did she change in the back of a charger? I don't know, but at the same time, if it's anything like where she probably got that suit from, it kind of makes some sense. So basically, we see her dressed up in an Iron Man-ish Black Widow's stealth armor.
Sure.
Which looks pretty good. I'm like, all right, let's go. I want to see Iron Widow. So, and I saw an article out there. It was like
the War Widow.
Strongest, huh?
The War Widow. That's what.
Yeah, they call it the War Widow, but I'm just like, I like Iron Widow because we already got War Machine. We don't need that again.
Sure. Although
But
she does have the missile launcher pods.
she does, yeah, exactly. So it is, technically more like War Machine than not. But it also makes sense for her. But nevertheless, so we're going to see her in action next issue, and I've already seen an article out there talking about Black Widow becomes the strongest Avenger. I'm like, that like she got a Iron Man armor. That doesn't necessarily make that the case, but at the same time, sure, yeah, why not? Let's go.
I think before we move on, I wanted to touch on one thing that you were speaking about, which was Ghost Rider.
Yes.
I find it interesting that the character has really grown in the pages of Avengers, more so than even in his own book, which is really scary.
Yeah.
Like he's fine, like I don't know if he's going to be like the next Vision or Scarlet Witch that is like a prime secondary character for an Avengers book, because it seemed like he was okay holding up his own book in a Ghost Rider book, but because he's a young, inexperienced Ghost Rider as opposed to Danny Ketch or even Johnny Blaze, where we see them in their team books kind of being not on the experience side, but definitely not as not being portrayed as much of a rookie as he is.
Right.
So it's interesting to see him kind of come into his own with his powers and his abilities and his courage in this book.
Yeah, I feel like they're kind of using this as a vehicle, much like granted, both Miss Marvel and Miles have had their own books, but I feel like they're using it in a similar vein as to when they were on Avengers, to kind of give them a little bit of more growth on that
exposure.
Yeah. So what you said is definitely is a case. You definitely see more growth in them here than not.
In his solo book.
Which he doesn't have at this point.
Right, he hasn't had a solo book in a long time now. The solo Ghost Rider book right now it's not even technically a solo book because it's Danny and Johnny Blaze.
Right.
So it's not even, it's just a Ghost Rider book. So it's funny that the Ghost Rider that most people would recognize outside of people who subjected themselves, and I mean subjected themselves to the Nicolas Cage movies, the Ghost Rider that people would know would be Robbie Rodriguez.
Reyes.
I'm sorry. Why am I thinking Rodriguez?
I'm not sure.
Robbie Reyes. See how long it's been since he's been on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? So,
which actually brings up, that was the point I was going to bring up. Like, boy, this would be, I mean, granted that the TV shows and the books don't necessarily match up or, kind of play on each other, but it would be nice if that was the case.
Well, hopefully in the near future that will be more of the case.
Yeah. But yeah, like you said previously, this is definitely a good action-packed issue of the book. And on the other side of that, because there was I guess you can call a B plot if there was one. We cut back to the past where Tony is dealing with the Star Brand of his own and meets with the 1 million BC with the rest of him and the rest of the 1 million BC Avengers. So, and we kind of get a little bit of that before they kind of
fade away. They kind of flashback forward,
right?
And we don't see too much of it. So
we can at this point assume that maybe the two are going to join back up at some point. I kind of doubt it. It's the way that it seems like, but I suspect the space thing is going to get dealt with. They're going to have a Star Brand, and then they'll end up going back to 1 million BC and helping Tony out. Maybe, I don't know.
I just think it's interesting that Jason Aaron seems to be having a lot of fun with this book. There's a lot of stuff going on.
He's throwing a lot up in the air, and some of it's actually sticking in the air at the point for the time being, because there's still a whole bunch of stuff that is still out there that he didn't even
actually
do yet.
That's exactly what I was getting at. There's just a lot of stuff going on, and he is touching upon the story threads here and there, and still keeping things, as Chris Claremont was wont to do, dangling. So,
the difference being that at least from what we know of him now, he is at least one addressed, and two have come back around and not have addressed the
It doesn't leave them. Yeah, it doesn't leave them as long.
love Claremont's run, but he has left some stuff kind of just sitting out there and
Oh,
still
sure.
out there. So
I mean, that's exactly the point, but as you mentioned, he's juggling a lot and he is definitely nailing some of these landings. So
but if you're gonna have a book like this and do something like that with, and knowing you're gonna come back to him, it's like, yeah, you kind of have to touch on it at some point, just kind of let people know that, hey, that still stuff is out there. But at the same time, I guess that helps the longevity of the book, knowing that, hey, he's still got stuff that he's got out there, and they're going to let him finish it.
Definitely.
So as opposed
and
to,
and I was about to say, and he can stick with things.
Exactly. So
that's a reference to another book of his that I'm going to talk about at some point.
Which I guess, do you want to hit that one now?
I was about to say we may want to get into rapid fire at this point.
Okay.
Because we need to kind of get things moving a little.
And we do have a lot of news, so yeah.
Alrighty, so here we go, spinning it up. All right. Let's see. Let me shout out if you've got any of these books in common with me this week. Batman number 85.
Nope.
Oh. So, welp, that's the end of the Tom King run on the Batman book. I was honestly underwhelmed, although it did tie things up, and we found ourselves at a new place for Batman and Catwoman, a new place for Flashpoint Batman, and Bane getting a little bit of revenge, but not against who you think he would. So this is King basically putting most of the toys back in the box for I believe it's James Tynion to pick up
the fourth. Yes, and I believe didn't he have like a backup story?
Yes, it was just a short 3 or 4 page thing that basically sets up a little bit of what's to come in Tynion the Fourth's run, including the big reveal from last week's Superman number 18 coming into play. Next up is Black Panther number 19. I know we both read this.
Yep.
I actually enjoyed this issue. It's a potential click of the week for me. It was super entertaining. I thought that Ta-Nehisi Coates and artist Ryan Bodenheim were hitting on all cylinders in this issue. I thought it was super solid. One of my favorite parts of this issue was Shuri raising an objection to
and not backing down of it at that. Sorry,
right, and to what T'Challa had planned for in this issue, and it really served to remind everyone that she is still a former Black Panther and essentially the ruler of Wakanda while T'Challa's running around as the Black Panther.
Mm-hmm. And she made sure she called them out on all of it. So that was definitely a highlight of the book for me also. Right. And got him on basically from calling them out, kind of got him back on track, or got him on track to go forward, as opposed to what he was initially going to do.
Sure. Okay. Next up is Daredevil number 15. Daredevil and Elektra are on the warpath against the Stromwyn family. I don't know if they are an old school crime family in the comics. I really, I'd have to Google that actually. This family find themselves taking their own form of vengeance against the mayor, Wilson Fisk. What we find in this issue is that Daredevil may have finally made it back to being Daredevil again. May have. We will see in upcoming issues. This has been a very winding road for both characters, Daredevil and the Kingpin. So Zdarsky's doing an excellent job of laying this out, and Checchetto's art is definitely a strong point for the book. Both in telling both stories actually. Next up, Believe It or Not. Like Ripley's Believe It or Not. Doomsday Clock, number 12, actually came out.
It finally happened. The long-standing nightmare is over, folks.
It happened. I paid my $1 to PCN_dirt. There is proof that I paid off my bet.
I'm not going to use that particular thing as a thumbnail, but there is something I will probably use.
Yes, We know what we I strongly suspect I know what it is.
Yeah,
You know, Winthorpe, but yeah, I paid off my losing bet, and it did come out. I can say that I actually enjoyed it. Of all things this week, it was a potential click of the week, simply because it was an oddball way to end the story. I just thought it was just odd. And the art by Gary Frank, it was, I don't know if he was the reason for all the delays. His artwork has become so detailed, has become so intricate compared to what it was when he was churning out a monthly title on The Incredible Hulk way back when he was following up Dale Keown. Right? I don't know if you remember that in like the mid 90s. He was one of the steadier monthly artists out there. He didn't have the most detail ridden, and I say ridden as a criticism in this case. He didn't have the most detail ridden style, but it was clean, it was efficient, and it told the story. You know, he was always a good storyteller, but I think that what he was striving for, which is you know, definitely an homage to Dave Gibbons, you know, the original artist of Watchmen. And you know, I wonder if that unnecessarily slowed him down. You know, but I can also understand why they would want him to finish it, because the end result really did look very nice. Um, some of the fears that, or some of the thoughts that we had in terms of this book setting up the new status quo, I didn't really see come to pass. We sort of understand, we sort of get a resetting of what the continuity is post rebirth now. Um, it sort of reestablishes a lot of the new 52 stuff that we had understood to be, the various 52 worlds. So I guess um takeaway from this, is that the multiverse is restored in that sense. And it took a while to do it. And also, at the end of the day, the 1985 verse of the Watchmen is here to stay as well.
So the question I have with that, well, one question I have is that, so you said it was enjoyable. Does it actually pay off, given what they originally said, that a lot of this was supposed to reverberate throughout the DC universe, but it's also 2 years late, or some method?
I don't think it reverberates throughout the way we thought it would,
especially given what's going on in Justice League and around the universe, or the Prime universe now. Anyway,
right?
No, around the universe, because some of that is even multiversal. So
right, I think what it does is just it resets it so that Rebirth is basically undone. And we're not talking about one primary timeline now. Things have been reverted to what we always understood them to be post-crisis, post all the crises.
Okay. Well, because it was kind of felt like it was made to be this big thing that didn't really, especially with all the delays and stuff, didn't seem like it panned out. Granted, I haven't been reading it, so I don't know.
I mean, the way I read it, and maybe I have to reread the whole thing because I did skip a lot of it. Let's be honest. The way my interpretation of it is that this was one way to bring in Watchmen into the DC multiverse.
Right.
And another way to basically reset a lot of the things that maybe didn't sell so well during New 52 and Rebirth.
Right.
That's the way I saw it.
But as long as it did that, I guess that's the end result.
Right. I guess that's the reverberation that echoes across the DC universe.
Sure.
All right.
Okay. It is also worth noting that the HBO series Watchmen has also ended by this time, and there was some speculation which I don't know if I doubt of that being the case, is that was the other reason why this ends now, is because now that ends, which I don't think has anything to do with that. But
no,
it doesn't make sense to kind of, for that to be the reason why this was, or that this issue shows up now anyway.
Right. No, I don't think so at all, because I don't see much of a tie, if anything.
Right. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway,
yeah, but I'd be more than willing to do a treasure edition on the Watchmen miniseries. I don't know if you watched it.
Mm-mm.
I may have to do a solo on it, and we'll see.
Yeah.
See if Tim or PCN_Dirt watched it. And the last book I have is another potential click of the week, and it's King Thor #4. It's the culmination of Jason Aaron's 100+ issue run on Thor. You know,
down to this.
What's that? Yes, it all has come down to this. Shout out to Rise of Skywalker, right? This is just a beautifully rendered story. It's poetic, it's epic, it's everything that you would expect from a Jason Aaron Thor book. This is going to go down as one of the big runs on Thor. Definitely comparable to the Simonson run, which basically put the character on most people's maps, in terms of epic storytelling. So, we have, I don't want to spoil everything. It definitely helps to have read the entirety of the run, because much like what we were saying before about dangling plot threads in Avengers currently, a lot of the dangling threads that Aaron left in Thor were tied up neatly in this issue. And we also have Aaron basically putting several toys back in the toy box, or placing things back in the sandbox for Donny Cates and Nick Klein to pick up in the next volume of Thor, but at the same time setting up characters into new situations and giving them a new status quo, chiefly Balder, Sif, and Balder and Sif, really. Those are the characters that we see with new directions. Loki's kind of in a state of limbo, which is what he should be at the end of a big, series like this. But he's never gone for too long. We all know that. So,
Sadly, his solo book didn't last that long, but that was a sad thing anyway.
Right. But yeah, this is definitely a candidate for a click of the week for me. Just a wonderful book.
Cool. For me, we'll get to Guardians of the Galaxy #12, which
unbelievably another book ending its series, ending this volume, right?
Yep, that is absolutely true, and it ends. I'm still kind of processing it, but at the same time, so there was a thing that they had been touting months ago about a certain character, which did not happen. So I'm sure fans of that character will be happy for that. But at the same time, it's I kind of hate when they do that. It's like, hey, this death of this character, this and that, but then it doesn't necessarily happen because it just feels like a just big red herring.
Okay.
But at the same time, this issue was pretty good. There was the big fight, and they basically cleaned up what was going on in that, and very quickly, not very quickly. So basically, the thing with Rocket Raccoon was kind of dealt with. The Drax is basically back because the Drax that they ended up coming across. Which are you planning on reading this?
Yes.
Okay, so I won't spoil it too much, but basically there was a big fight. Things happen. I already spoiled the Drax thing, but what do you have to read how it happened, and then it just kind of pivots to let's just say a year in review. Weirdly enough, including some characters like the Silver Surfer, who just happens to be there because
he's Caustic.
And we also have Bill also, but I'm not sure if they come across. Now that I think about it, I need to go look at those panels again.
This is post Silver Surfer Black, right? With his
yes. Because matter of fact, that's the funny part about it, because basically there's a question was asked about. So what happened? So slight spoiler. So basically, the character asked, "So what happened? So what I missed this past year?" And then you just see a couple of pages of a whole bunch of stuff that has happened cosmically and whatnot, including some people that has nothing to do with this book. And then you just kind of see. It panned back to where everybody at, and it's like, no, nothing happened. Not really, not much happened. And then Silver Surfer is like, oh well, I went to the beginning of the time and fought and then somebody just like, yeah, nothing really happened.
Yeah.
So that part was really funny. But and then there's a touching moment at the end you have to read. It was pretty good, and it obviously sets off, putting the characters in a certain place, going into Al Ewing's run coming next month, I guess.
Gotcha.
Ewing and I forgot who the artist is, but that artist. But they basically have a little splash page at the end of the book about that. So it's everything about what happened, in that last arc just got taken care of, basically, including you see something happen in the future, which probably is a surprise, but not so much of a surprise if you know kind of who's been kind of, especially underlying in the beginning of this volume, kind of reappears as a thing. So yeah, this is probably a potential click away for me for that. Another book that ended this week, sadly, is Future Foundation #5. I don't know if it was low sales or whatnot, or probably the stupid ass man babies complaining that comics are having an agenda who need to die. But they should die, because that way we can get more books like that actually does more than just the same old things for 50 years. But that's a whole nother situation. They pretty much got it to a place, like I'm sure there was more they were going to go. There were more places they were going to go with the book, because they had the whole, hey, Molecule Man's out there and they're trying to find the pieces of, all of them to put them back together and bring them back home. But, that didn't happen. But they kind of set them on a place, so I guess it could get picked up again somehow. I'm not sure if that's going to happen. But they basically put all of the characters in place, and there's a nice kiss between two characters, which I'm sure set off some of those same stupid man babies, assholes. Fuck those folks. But anyway, hey, comics is a big field. You don't have to like everything, but you don't have to poo-poo what other people like. That's all I'm saying. If you don't like it, fine, but let other people enjoy what they want. You don't run the comics. Anyway, X-Force #4. So as I said in my notes, it's another edition of CSI Krakoa. After another incident, and then we see the Quiet Council kind of come together, talking about what has happened and what they're going to do going forward. And we find out that X-Force in its classic mission is kind of back, but also they likened it to a federal section. Let's just put it away. They likened the X-Force to a section of the government body that's kind of law enforcement facing, let's say, on one end. I personally kind of likened it to a British counterpart, being MI6, especially what happens in this in the story. But at the end of it, they meet up with they go out on a mission after this is all said and done, and end up with more resistance. And it probably you plan on reading this, so I don't give it to. But there's an answer to a certain mutant's rejuvenation, not regeneration. What I'm looking for, what's the word? Resurrection.
Okay.
That seemed that was not answered before. That because there was a part of him that would have been missing out of the equation. And that seems to be solved on one end, and apparently they might need it going into the next issue. Justice League #38. So guess what, folks? We thought this was over. It's not over yet.
One more issue, I think.
It is one more issue. We thought was going to be an epilogue issue. Apparently, no. This is not. So it's a big knockdown, drag on fight. The tables have been more or less turned, let's just say, and a character I thought was going to get dealt with does definitely get dealt with, or some would say cleaned up, taken off the board, however you want to talk. But there was a character that's been floating around that's they dealt with in a way in this one, and someone lost came back. I will also say that. And we're going to go into the next issue, which is I assume is going to be the end of the whole shebang.
Man.
But it was actually a pretty good read. The whole like it was a most of it was sitting around a big fight between Lex and the League, while the other stuff was going on in the background surrounding the fight. But it was a good issue. I enjoyed it. So it could be a potential pick of the week for me.
Wow, there's so much I still have to read this week. Unreal.
Yeah, same here.
Unreal.
But until we get to that, we will go into clicks of the week.
Clicks of the week.
And we have 2 already for our absent members. And one from PC and Underscore Dirt would be Cult Classics Creature Feature, which he said it's basically like Stranger Things, but meets 50s monster movies.
Okay.
So if that is the thing that is up your alley, hey, run with it. And from Tim, the not so confusingly but very confusingly named Spider-Man #3, which is the
Abrams book, right?
Abrams, the Abrams and Pacelli book.
Mm-hmm.
That's J.J. Abrams, yes, in case you didn't know. I don't know. But yeah, so he said that's his click of the week. He didn't necessarily give a reason why, but he basically said that was it. So
okay.
Which
I'm gonna be very predictable and go with King Thor #4.
Yeah, I kind of expect it. But hey, why not? You said it was a good pick. It was a good pick. So.
Yeah, I read a lot of interesting things this week, and it seems like I missed out on a lot more interesting things that I still am going to have queued up in the old iPad to read. So, there's a lot out there this week to read, but I definitely appreciated the work that Jason Aaron, Isad Ribic, Mike Del Mundo, and all of the other artists that contributed to the final King Thor issue and the final Jason Aaron authored Thor book.
I mean, it would, knowing that you're a longtime Thor fan, one, I mean, for heaven's sake, if you're watching the video, the dude's got a hammer on his shoulder. So that goes without saying. It would, now grant, unless the book kind of flopped, that would be a whole different story. But it, while it is not that big of a surprise, it would be a surprise if you didn't pick this issue.
Mm-hmm. It would be a disappointment, right?
Yeah. Unless the book was just that big of a, it didn't take landing or whatever, which, that would be hard to believe for Aaron at this point. So, anywho, for myself, well, I would guess I was slightly stalling for time.
There's plenty to choose from this week.
There is, and like you, there's a few more that I didn't get to. No.
It's okay. I mean, it's funny that we spent a lot of time trying to parse out what happened in Annihilation, Scourge, Omega.
Well, and that tribe I had about 29.9 didn't help any either.
And it's funny, like we could have spent a lot more time on some of these books that we really appreciated this week.
But hey, you take the good, you take the bad, you take the both. There you have. So,
facts.
Exactly. We talk about just the stuff that's good. It's not fair to the stuff that's bad that we can.
Exactly. We're trying to tell people about the stuff that maybe needs a little improvement. Talk about being politically correct, right there, huh?
Yeah. So I guess what I'm. Man. Ugh. Avengers was good. X-Force was good. Guardians actually ended up on a sweet note, but that was slightly predictable. No one was anything anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I will go with Avengers.
Nice.
We'll do that.
It was a fun read.
It definitely was. So with that, folks, we are going to go into the cinematic news, but first, an ad read.
Our first ad read of the night is not for the ads that we have been reading into the ground over the last several weeks. Our first ad is for Wink, because we're going to need our personalized wine club after this show. Wink is a world of wine delivered right to your door. From rosé to Cabernet to Torronté, Wink has over 100 styles of wine to discover. Ever try an orange wine? Wink connects you to a world of exclusive wines tailored to your tastes and delivered directly to your door. Wink delivers 4 bottles of wine to you every month with free shipping. You can pick your own bottles or let Wink choose and match to your taste. It doesn't cost a thing to become a member, and you can skip or cancel anytime. And now, the listeners of the Click Nation's Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy an exclusive discount of $20 off your first order. To place your first order with $20 off, and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at CSPNUS/wink. That's CSPN.us/WINC. Wink wines through CSPN. Do it today. Now it's time for the news.
If you're one folk that deals with Lightstream as a streaming app, always remember there's something that you have to remember to set up prior to starting your show. Anyway, cinematic news. That's a little PSA. You know, I wish I had my soundboard up. Unfortunately, I don't. But it's okay. It's fine. Oh, wait.
And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe!
If I wasn't lazy, I would cut that in some kind of way. But regardless, Star Wars, folks. Now, we are not talking spoilers because Rise of the Skywalker has just came out.
Yeah, as of the date of this recording, the movie has officially been released. Today is Friday, the 20th of December, so it is in wide release today. Roddykat and I saw it last night in what's technically still previews.
Yeah, although that's just basically the unofficial first day of the movie. Everybody knows that at this point, which, man, there were the days when that wasn't the case.
Exactly.
So, actually, before we even go into it, let's get to the story first. Palpatine taunts Kylo Ren in the new Rise of Skywalker clip. Obviously, this came out before the movie did, so it is what it is. And now that the movie's out, I will say that, you know, if you've seen this clip, you've seen this clip. But just to go bounce off of that to say, hey, what did you think of the movie without spoilers?
Without spoilers, I had an uneven experience.
I
had an uneven experience. I think, honestly, I think, and this is going to sort of tie into our next story. I think that I've become spoiled because leading up to this movie, I did a rewatch of, and I didn't really do a complete rewatch, but I definitely jumped around both Clone Wars and Rebels, and I did do mostly a rewatch of the films thanks to the Binge Mode podcast. The only one I didn't sit through and rewatch was ironically The Force Awakens. The only two I didn't do were The Force Awakens and Last Jedi. So, but those are still relatively fresh in my memory, and I did do a rewatch of Last Jedi, I guess, when it hit Netflix. So it wasn't too long.
Yeah. So I said on Twitter last night after I got out of the movie, this is a Star Wars movie. That's pretty much as much as I can say because they did a lot.
Yeah, oh yes, they definitely did a lot. I want to reserve all of my comments on it
for sure. Yeah, like that's pretty much all I'm gonna say about at that point. But for the most part, I've seen that this doesn't make how I feel about the movie one way or the other. But I've noticed there are a lot more people on your side or worse.
Yeah, I'm firmly in the middle because there's definitely some uneven aspects to the movie that they didn't ruin it for me, but I was kind of like, oh.
Well, and there's also some that like I have seen some of course the social media is like the last great movie is Last Jedi, basically. So the scale teaches like some people are saying actually there's a few people saying that this is the worst movie. There's some people who are like it's the middle range, it was good, it was fine for what it was. There's some people who are like, just like I said, saying hey, the last great movie was Last Jedi, which again there was another contingent of crazy folk who don't like Last Jedi. Right. And I'm not saying Last Jedi was a great movie, but I'm saying that those people's detractions were for stupid things.
They have their own reasons, not necessarily on
boy, those people are going to have them for this one.
No, but what I was going to say is they don't necessarily have the criticisms on the basis of the actual filmmaking and the storytelling. They're for other things. And I think in terms of the filmmaking and the storytelling in this movie, it's uneven. I honestly think it's uneven, and I'll get into my thoughts on it. I've already started jotting them down. I've got, couple of pages worth of notes in my notebook here for because I needed to I went to a late showing last night and I needed to get some thoughts down while they were fresh. And thanks to the good folks over at Binge Mode, they've already had a little bit of a breakdown of the movie, and I feel like most people are going to find themselves in the camp of it was mostly good, but there were definitely a couple of tough spots.
Yeah. I have also seen like as a matter of fact, like you just said for yourself, like matter of fact, and what you spoke about before the show, like people seeing the movie and then getting other perspectives,
right,
from other places, and that kind of changing their perspective on things, or
maybe not changing, but definitely informing, right? Definitely further informing their perspective, because there's a lot to this movie. It's easy to miss a lot of things. It is moving at a quick pace, and I would say that I think we mentioned this in our conversation before the show. It might be helpful. It might be beneficial for your views on the movie to watch it a second time and to really sit with it. I don't know if I plan on doing it in the theater unless someone invites me, but I definitely feel like I would have more of a perspective on it watching it at home, with the sound turned up for certain parts. So you can actually make out some voices.
Yeah, there was that. But so I agree with kind of what you say, but at the same time, like I tend to try to go into movies to try to, just in case I don't get back to doing that stuff. And I'm not saying that, hey, my powers of recall are all that great or whatever the case may be, and my perspective is all there is, because it's definitely not. But I try to get all that I can with the first showing,
right?
Because I never know if I'm actually going to get back to it again. But I think I may try on this one. In fact, the funny part about it is two things happened. So the day before, I had a ticket for you had a 10 o'clock showing, right?
Yes, it was at 10:30 actually. I didn't get out until after it was late. It was late.
I originally had a 10 o'clock showing, just like you, but I was like, let me see if there's if I can get a different seats, because I didn't like my seat. But then I was like, let me see if I can get another seat at an earlier showing, and the seat was slightly better, but not that by that much.
Right.
And the other thing that happened, which I said this on social media, on Twitter, that within the first 5 minutes of the movie, the sound cut out.
Oh,
for a good solid 5 minutes.
Oh,
And it was at the beginning, like the crawl that happened. You heard the crawl, and then you saw some action, and the action, you just heard action, then it just cut off. They didn't restart the movie.
Oh, that's terrible.
Now, granted, during the part that was cut off, it was not necessarily like
onto the rant.
Hey, boo!
Now, granted, that part of the movie, like at least it came back on before some major talking happened, because within that time there was not necessarily that much talking, as far as I could tell.
All right.
Because of who was involved and what was going on at the time, but I'm sure there might have been something that was being missed. So that was very stupid of the from the theater, and people were I had a pretty lively crowd,
right?
Of some, I would dare say, some Dubros and some other folks may or may not have been.
I had a couple of that I had a couple of that in the corner of the theater, and I wanted. Well, I'll get into it when I
Yeah, but they were actually not bad. Like, they didn't just kill the movie. Like, there were like when the sound went off, they were like, "Hey, bring the restart the movie," that kind of stuff. But they didn't get like crazy with all that kind of stuff. And there were a few comments going into it, and maybe one or two comments during the course of it, but they didn't get crazy with it.
Right.
So it wasn't that bad. It could have been a whole lot worse.
Oh yeah.
But that being said, it was a pretty good crowd for that. There was even some people that kind of sort of clapped at the end, but not really, because I think people were kind of coming out just like you and I kind of are. Like I said, I enjoyed it for the filming aspect and for it being a Star Wars movie, and it was like, well, hey, this is it. This is it for the trilogies going forward, from what they've been saying. So for all of that, like I kind of enjoyed it. But yeah, the things that kind of happened in the movie, or even stuff that got opened up in the movie, it was like, okay, let's see some of that. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, there were some things about the movie that was kind of, I don't know, I'm still kind of processing.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Thank you for bringing that up. I think we're all going to need some time to continue to process this movie. So look towards your social media sources, because we're probably going to let you guys know when we're going to do a Treasury edition, because I really want to talk about this movie.
Same here.
So,
as a matter of fact, there was something I may just even ask you about afterwards, but if we have time. But
well, I mean, if anything, it's part of the layout of what the show might be. So,
Right.
that's definitely something to keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that we will be having a Treasury edition on the Rise of Skywalker. So,
because boy, there, like I said, there was a lot.
there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to process.
Exactly. So let us move on with the news. That being the case, because we still have a bit of it, and I cut out specifically cut out a lot of the stuff.
We can go through this rather quickly, because there's only so much to say about it. Like our next story, which is J.J. Abrams teases a cameo from Ahsoka Tano from Star Wars, the Clone Wars, and Star Wars Rebels in the Rise of Skywalker movie,
which is something I wanted to mention to you after the.
Yes, we'll talk about this off the
not particularly about this, but about stuff around that.
Sure.
So yeah, we won't say whether that actually happened or not, but just know that JJ kind of did tease something about
it.
If you've seen the movie, you know whether that. Speaking of JJ Abrams, he wants the theatrical cuts of the original trilogy release, and guess what? So say we all. So apparently, Abrams was talking to some site or some whatever and said that he tried asking Lucasfilm about the possibility of an original cut release, but hit a brick wall. And he said, as a quote, "I've been told that for a reason I quite don't understand, that's not necessarily possible." I think we can probably piece together part of it, because I know, the first trilogy started in 1977. Whether they still have the old masters, the original masters for that stuff, because they had them for the releases. They have, we don't. Lucas might have burned them for all we know. In a fit of justice, we don't actually know. But there's some reason why they are not going to release it. Some of it may possibly end up being illegal. This is me speculating, because I do remember there's being something with the original movie and some rights that other people outside of Lucas has to that said movie. So some of that might be tied up. That again, all of this is kind of speculation, because we don't know just yet. Even with the Disney Fox merger, there's some that still hasn't borne out of that, sadly. But nevertheless, JJ wants what a lot of us older folks of a specific vintage want.
Yeah, those of us who were around watching Star Wars before the special editions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That he keeps. I'm not going to go back on this again, but that he keeps messing with.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so that is that for this particular thing. Whether that'll ever happen in our lifetime, who even know, or even in Lucas's lifetime, we don't know.
Alrighty, next up, mild spoilers for the Mandalorian episode from last week. The episode gave us a few new stars to gaze at, and there were a lot of guest stars.
Or tonight.
What's that?
Oh wait, it was. Wait, so that means
they showed this week's episode. This week's episode dropped on Wednesday.
So basically it ended, right? So
no, we were talking earlier, ladies and gentlemen, about the Mandalorian basically finishing in a 2-part episode. Like a 2-part story, and it actually dropped on Wednesday ahead of Rise of Skywalker. So if you haven't watched it yet, it's out there for you.
Right, and I'll just go to throw in something which I don't think I have in the notes, because like I said, a lot of stuff that I put Rise of Skywalker related to next week. Mm-hmm. But there is a connection between the Mandalorian episode of this week and the Rise of Skywalker, hence probably the reason why they put it out early.
Mm-hmm. And they also tease. There's also a teaser. Once you finish watching the Mandalorian,
right,
of Rise of Skywalker,
so that being the case, and I haven't seen this week's episode of the Mandalorian yet, and it just and so, as I told him before the show, knowing that it was going to be a two-parter ending this issue and the next this episode and the next one. I figured I'd wait till next week to
catch them both.
So hopefully I won't get spoiled between now and then, but knowing me and getting the news that we could possibly end up happening.
That's hard.
Yeah, it'll be all right.
All righty. Next up, this is you, I think.
Yes. Speaking of the Mandalorian, I threw this one. I was gonna keep this one to the next week, but I put it in here because it kind of bummed me out. And that is the case of the Mandalorian shoots down a major Baby Yoda theory, which was the theory that I was going with, in that he was a clone. He's not. Spoiler alert.
I figured he wasn't.
Yeah, I kind of figured that they wouldn't have gone that far, but it would, because in some respects that'd have been the easy way out,
right?
Given where it was coming from. But at the same time, now I'm actually more curious as to what they, how they handled it. That being the case. So, which I guess, so just a little backstory. Well, not even a little backstory, but just a little addendum though. So, we've kind of talked about Baby Yoda a little bit. He's kind of taken over social media. That being said, and his origin has been a thing of wonder. Let's just say.
Shout out to the LBY.
Right, or your Dito, or whatever you want to call them. We know Yoda was a thing. He was the only one of his race for a long time until the prequels came along, and then as another came out, and I believe either Clone Wars and or Rebels had another version. I had another of Yoda's kind, so it's not outside of the realm of possibility that while they are not out there as much as most of the other races in the Star Wars universe, there are some around apparently. So they're just apparently not as many, which is another story I'm kind of also curious about. And even going back to the Old Republic days, there's been some around, but not that many. There's like one, and it's not even Yoda, because obviously Yoda's not that old, even though he was old. So that being said, we still don't even know the name of his race, as far as I know. But that's neither here nor there. So that being said, I say that, hey, I guess it's not a surprise that he's not a clone. In that respect, but at the same time, I'm slightly kind of disappointed. But hey, we'll find that out when we get to the point, or at least when I get to the point. Next up,
Sci-Fi Wire has acquired a 7-episode short-form docuseries called "Looking for Leia" from independent filmmaker Annalise Ophelian. This was following a successful preview sneak peek screening at this year's Dragon Con. They're 10 to 15 minute episodes showcasing several female-centric aspects of the fandom, about a galaxy far, far away, from the legacy of the late Carrie Fisher to droid builders and makers to creators of fashion, art, and jewelry to genre authors who were inspired by the beloved franchise. So that's pretty cool.
Right. And I want to say there was...
Oh, just real quick. Looking for Leia tells the stories of women and non-binary fans whose lives have been changed by Star Wars. I could have described that whole story in that sentence. Thank you very much, if you want. Burying that. There
is also a podcast that I thought was the same name, but apparently it is not. But there is a similarly named Star Wars podcast. That's about so. And I was looking up the name, but don't worry, it's not that important right now. But there's some notable people on the internet that's behind it, so I know they're probably thrilled, and they may even probably have something to do with this arc series. And I want to say that it's starting. Yes, actually, it is at the time of this recording, it will start on December 21st, which will be tomorrow.
Okay.
All 7 episodes. Wait, did you say it already? I don't think you did. Sci-fi.com, VOD, YouTube, and NBCU's One app.
Okay.
Which I forgot totally they have a streaming services, with 2 episodes airing back to back on the Sci-Fi television network at 11 o'clock p.m. Central. Looks like. So look out for that if you are so interested. I may check it out. The man who plotted to kill Power Ranger star Jason David Frank to be sentenced. So apparently somebody took a run at the Green Ranger, Black Ranger, White Ranger, whatever you want to call them. Excuse me, huh?
And they missed.
Yeah, apparently. Which I mean, he's a kind of also a MMA fighter. So even if they gotten to him, I'm not sure how they would have fared. But apparently, they might have had some weaponry with them. I don't know if that would have changed things or not. So anyway, he was at a Phoenix Comic Con. Actually, this was from 2 years ago. And some dude, we won't say his name, or we probably should, but whatever. Went at him, and he had typed into his smartphone, "Kill Jason David Frank," and sadly, stuff like that is more common here in the States than we would like to admit to, or at least folks would like to admit to, given the number of mass shootings and other random acts of violence, not so random acts of violence that happens. So we are in a sad state of affairs. But nevertheless, back in 2017, the guy planned to kill the actor at the convention and possibly take out anyone else who might have gotten in the way during the Phoenix Comic Con appearance. And it sounds like police said that the guy whose name, screw it, Matthew Sterling, that's the guy's name. Okay. Whatever. Police said that Sterling had every intention of killing officers as well, if that was what it was going to take to reach the Power Ranger star, according to police. So the police got into a struggle, got him down, and they arrested him. So now I guess he's up for trial, or now he's being sentenced. Excuse me, his trial's already been had, and he's been sentenced. So there are some not well people. I don't want to use crazy, but there's some not well people in this world, and it's really sad. Next up.
Speaking of the Power Rangers, according to the Hollywood Reporter, the Power Rangers are getting another theatrical reboot, this time at Paramount, and in a story that will take the concept back to its 1990s roots, with bad hair and bad clothes. THR is reporting. hot shots fired. THR is reporting Paramount Pictures is in early negotiations with filmmaker Jonathan Entwistle, Netflix's The End of the Effing World, to start over and call on the property's Mighty Morphin Power Rangers TV past. Okay, so anyone who is looking for a refresher on the Power Rangers past, I would definitely recommend the Toys That Made Us docuseries on Netflix. The episode on the Power Rangers is pretty enlightening. That was post my fandom. Like I consciously chose not to jump in on that fandom because it just didn't look very cool. So
whatever. Hey man, Power Rangers, whatever. Power Rangers.
Oh, that was me. I'm not criticizing anyone else. William Bruce West. But so I kid.
No. So I would also suggest, well, not even suggest, but if you are familiar with Power Rangers and don't know the history of it, there is also the Super Sentai series, which is the long running series that the Power Rangers is based off of, including and especially Zero Rangers, which is on shoutfactory.tv. You can go check out that series and a bunch of the other series going forward, and actually one that almost was Power Rangers, if you want the source material for a lot of that stuff. Because basically Power Rangers took a lot of the Japanese footage and just added American actors and voiceover work to that stuff. It's quite enlightening, some of that stuff, because you see the difference, but you also see the similarities.
Okay.
Kind of amusing. And yeah, I don't know. I guess there was a lot about that last movie that was, neither here. I still haven't seen it yet, but there were people who didn't care for it, and there were people who did. I don't know. So I don't know if it may not have done the numbers that Hasbro, aka Allspark Pictures, wanted it to have. Oh, excuse me, also Allspark Pictures, which is their production company, who's doing this. So may not have done what they wanted it to do. Who knows? Next up, well, actually, you took care of that also, because which I don't know why I have this in here twice. The big screen reboot will go back to the 90s. You've already said that, so we don't have to go to that any further. Jason Isaacs wants racists to stop pretending to be Star Wars fan, and I quite agree with him.
Star Trek fans.
Yeah. Yes. Well, you can say that for any.
I was reading the story. I was like, what?
Yeah, but specifically in this case, Star Wars fan. So Jason Isaacs played Captain Lorca in Discovery.
He plays Lucius Malfoy.
That is also the case. Yes.
He also played the bad guy in The Patriot. He's been around.
Yeah, he's definitely been around. So and for what little I've seen of him as Captain Lorca, he was pretty good. And granted, like I haven't finished the first season of Discovery yet for some odd reason. But regardless, he does his thing. Anyway, so it says here there's a lot of reasons that basically he was speaking to Radio Times about the Star Trek Discovery's upcoming network broadcast debut in the UK, which it's on CBS All Access here and Netflix and other places, not in the US. He basically discussed the critical reaction to Discovery's debut season. The show placed a lot of criticism from many angles, whether it was Star Trek diehards nitpicking at the canonical retcons, or reviews and critics engaging with the show's attempts to portray morally murky Federation at the time of conflict and how successfully it was educated. But basically, Isaac says, let's see, a particular vocal area of complaint among some quote-unquote fans was that, heaven forbid, a Star Trek show believed in progressive values, put a black woman front and center, which was the big thing I have seen, and engaged in issues of social justice, which is another big thing that I wish those people would die out. A Star Trek show, how dare they? But anyway, that was Isaac's. I don't know if there was a direct quote that he says in here, but they basically he basically goes on to give his opinions on that, including what was said in the title. So next up, Star Trek Picard Season 2 will have a new showrunner. So first of all, there's going to be a Star Trek Picard Season 2.
Right.
I'm not sure if we covered that or not, or if that even came out before this.
I guess this is news for us now. Michael Chabon served as showrunner for the show's first season, but Chabon is shifting gears to work on the Showtime adaptation of his novel, The Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, which was announced last week. So he's going to remain an executive producer on the second season, but the new showrunner is going to be... Did they name it yet? I guess not.
I'm not sure if they... I don't think they did. As a matter of fact, it says here CBS All Access has not officially renewed the Star Trek Picard for a second season, which was another thing. But I don't see it here.
All right.
If they've named anybody yet. So, well, we'll stay tuned. We'll see if that actually happens. But apparently, if it does happen, somebody else will be in charge. 2 new Star Trek films officially in development, because that train will not stop. While speaking to investors at the UBS Global Technology, Media, and Telecommunications Conference, that's a mouthful, Viacom CBS CEO Bob Bakish said that there's 2 new Star Trek movies that are officially in development. The news may come as a bit surprise to Star Trek fans, including this person right here, especially after the series' history of diminishing returns of the box office, which... It was not for that reason. It was because I believe Pine and Hemsworth was like, well, we were not going to come back because possibly money. I'm not sure. And there was also that other thing with Quentin Tarantino trying to do a Star Wars movie, Star Trek movie. So I don't know if that one is one of the 2. So who knows? And I guess, I don't know, maybe they didn't make as much as what they said they were, or what they thought they were. Who knows? But that franchise is not going away. So, hey, surprise, surprise. Next up.
All right. Crisis on Infinite Earths has a sly nod to NBC's Constantine series.
Yay.
That was, because Constantine crossed over from NBC to CW land.
Which just sucks, because that was another show that kind of got killed after the first season, and it ended on a cliffhanger that, as far as I know, has never been picked up again. And it was a good one, that I thought. So, sad. Anyway.
So I guess it was because they recast the character of the Spectre, Jim Corrigan.
Oh, right. Yeah, because there was a different Jim Perkin on the NBC show, right? Oh, okay, I see. Because I didn't exactly read this. Yes. So basically, that was the case, and it was just a little nod to that. So that was cool. Stephen Amell describes Arrowverse's greatest fight scene in Arrow's finale. So, brand ambassador Stephen Amell told Collider, the coolest things that I want to say every stunt guy, more or less, who has worked on the show, even guys that retired or are coordinating on Supergirl or Flash or Legends, everybody came out. Everybody sold out in terms of what's happening. That's a weird sounding sentence. It's a sequence that I showed it to Robbie Amell, which is his cousin, and he's like, "That was incredible." That's your cousin, okay, sure. He had it, and I'm like, "That was the first third of it. Keep watching. It goes. It just goes, and it's a little superfluous, a little theatrical, just in terms of the amount of people I murder. It's what the fans deserve." So apparently, that basically just sound like he goes back to Bruce. He's at the fight scene where he just murders a bunch of people like he did in the first season. So I guess this. Whenever this happens, it's going to be a lot in the end of it.
Sure.
Which, wait, is it? I think it might have. No, it hasn't happened yet. Okay, that's right, because I think they're on hiatus at this point. The Arrow season finale titled "Fade Out" will air Tuesday, January 28th.
Okay.
And it sounds like there's going to be the episode before it is going to be a backdoor pilot for the Birds of Prey show. Sounds like, or whatever that ends up being. Next up.
All right. Spoilers for the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover, and that the heroes of the Arrowverse were betrayed by one of their own. Spoiler. When Lila Michaels, now Harbinger, was possessed by the Anti-Monitor and seemingly slew the Monitor. The Monitor's actor, LaMonica Garrett, recently confirmed the character's death with a little help from the haunting cover of 1985's Crisis on Infinite Earths #4.
Yeah, spoiler alert. That happened.
Yeah, I'm and straight up, I'm gonna try to read Crisis at some point over this holiday season.
So are you gonna watch the crossover?
No, I'm just gonna try to read the comic.
Alrighty then.
Listen, I've read bits and pieces. I'm just like Monitor, Anti-Monitor. Those I know. I'm just like, there's a Harbinger too. Oh.
Well, yeah, and given recent issues of Justice League where those characters minus Harbinger
right
are back into the fold for however much time.
And they also had an Infinite Crisis too.
Right.
There's actually a bit in Doomsday Clock about this, about all the various crises.
Yeah, that has come up a couple of times in the last year or two. Like I think even Young Justice kind of mentioned, I think that kind of solidified what the number of crises there were in that around that. So
and spoiler alert for Doomsday Clock #12. There's actually a little bit in there about a secret crisis coming in the future where Superman is fighting Thor and there's a green behemoth involved who's stronger than Doomsday.
I can't imagine who that would be.
Yeah, things that make you go,
So. Yeah. Well, especially there's some news that's coming up on that front. Well, not on that front, but on the other side of that. Anyway, it's Crisis on Infinite Earths 7 Paragons, the Justice League. So apparently, also spoilers for the part 3 of Crisis on Infinite Earths. There was a search for the Monitor basically was working to prepare all of reality and hope destroy the cosmic supervillain. According to him, there are 7 heroes who stand a chance, hero who he calls Paragons. Each represent a certain quality, be it truth, courage, hope, and the American way. That last part I added myself. As it stands, the Paragons are the Flash, Supergirl, Batwoman, White Canary, Martian Manhunter, Ryan Choi, and in a shocking twist, Lex Luthor. So basically, everybody who has their own show, who is either has their own show or a part of the show in the Arrowverse, minus Arrow. And of course, Lex Luthor, who is being played by Ducky at this point, which still kind of gets me. Yeah. So yeah, so there's rumor the where hey, could that very well lead into a Justice League type situation in the Arrowverse? Not necessarily a show, but you know, that kind of thing. I don't know. We'll see. Next up.
All right. Kyle. Spoiler alert again. Kyler Lee opens up on.
Charler.
What's that? Chyler?
I'm not sure. Never mind. Don't worry. Yeah, I'm not sure which one it is.
Kyler Lee opens up on Supergirl's crisis and real life mental health awareness for Chyler.
We apologize for butchering your name.
You're right. If it's neither one of those two, I'm apologizing.
Yeah, well, yeah, either way. So definitely.
As long as it's one of them, I'm okay.
So yeah, so this is she plays Supergirl's sister on Supergirl, obviously, or not obviously, because you may or may not be watching the show, but and she's also been a part of the Crisis on Infinite Earths. So Newsarama had the opportunity to speak with Lee while in this liminal state, and we asked her about Crisis and her own character's personal storyline. We also discussed her recent announcement to team up with Be Vocal, speak up for mental health. Opening up about her journey with mental health, and then the rest of it goes on into the article with her about that.
Okay.
Brandon Routh, had one demand in order to play Superman for Crisis, and that being he wanted to make sure that it was the same character, the same version of Superman, or at least similar enough to the character that he played in the movie. Or in Superman Returned. He said, as we know now with different films and comic book storylines that have come out of these years, there are different ways to approach the character. And he wanted to make sure that ideally it was the same character from Superman Returns. And if not, that it was still the same idea of who Superman is at his core. That was important to me because I wasn't necessarily interested in playing a different version, which we know he is playing the Kingdom Come version of Superman. So one would argue that's kind of different. But I have not read Kingdom Come, so maybe I might be slightly off on that. Because from what little I know of Kingdom Come, I feel like that's a slightly different character than the one he played in the movie.
It could be just another, could be a further evolution of the character. So
yeah, there is that one. Not that part was actually thought of, but because there was a picture of him. Actually, there's another article. I didn't put it in the thing, but there was another article of his Superman holding up the Supergirl Superman in a chokehold, and some people was like, "Yeah, that just kind of takes the bite out of that series that they're trying to do." So I don't know. Anyway, moving right along.
Alrighty, Superman Red Sun. There's an exclusive trailer that has debuted for the DC animated movie. It is the 38th entry in the DC Universe original movies lineup.
I have one. Shocking enough, I've not read Red Sun Superman.
I don't think I've read it all the way through. I've definitely flipped through it in the comic book store.
Right. I know what it's about, and I know a little bit about what it's about, or at least the premise of it anyway. But I didn't watch this trailer either. Speaking of Jason Ayers, he's playing Kal-El. He's playing he's playing old Soups.
Nice.
And a bunch of other characters, so most of which you will probably know and love. I'm actually kind of wondering because I know for a good while they were kind of doing like every movie was kind of taking beats from the one before it. Like they did Flashpoint, and then all of the movies was going from there. And I think that's still the case. With the exception of some side movies, I think. So I'm not sure if that was still the case. That was, and I say that because I was like, I wonder if it was good to catch up on some of that old stuff, just if that throughput is still there. So I don't know, but anyway, so I know a lot of people like Red Sun Superman. It'll be out in 2020. Apparently, it's not the only one, but it's still the only one that's kind of came out now, and it's by the same people who did Reign of the Superman, which was the previous one that just came out. Now that I think about it. Or the previous two that just came out because it was Death of and Reign of. So cool. Next. Oh, this is me. Patty Jenkins breaks down the sequel's 1984 significance. So I do believe we talked about last week that there was a trailer for Wonder Woman 1984, and Patty Jenkins goes on to mention why 1984. We don't want to get into, but if you want to read the article, go right on ahead. It's actually interesting. So next.
All right. Speaking of Wonder Woman, about Wonder Woman 1984, Patty Jenkins reveals why Kristen Wiig was picked for Cheetah. Essentially, Jenkins revealed during the Comic-Con experience panel in Brazil. Jenkins said, "We were super fans of Kristen and we love how funny she is, but I've also been a huge admirer of what a great actress she is for a long time. So when we needed someone to go all the way from one end of the spectrum of being funny, sweet Diana's friend, all the way to a totally different place, we knew that Kristen Wiig would kill it. And she went beyond our wildest dreams. So let's hope that works out."
Indeed. So, and yeah, she's there every now and then there's an offbeat pick for a character for something like we know a lot of people know Kristen Wiig from Saturday Night Live and the character she's played there. So it's not necessarily the first thing you would think about coming to something like this, but at the same time, it might be the best choice. Like we would have never gotten Michael Keaton as Batman if we kind of want to watch that. Think about that. Anyway, Wonder Woman 94, Gal Gadot explains why she doesn't use her sword. Basically saying if you have a sword, you mean to use it, and she kind of breaks down that whole notion, which makes sense. And realistically, if you think about it, large swaths of Wonder Woman's time, she didn't have a sword. But there are some people out there who's like, "Well, you're taking the best thing away from Batman and Superman." Shut up! You didn't care nothing about that.
Why doesn't she use her sword?
She basically says, like I said, if you have a sword, you mean to use it. Or you need to basically like that old adage of like, hey, if you're holding a gun, you better use it or that kind of thing.
I understand. There's a bit. I was actually thinking about Thor just now, and there's a bit in this week's King Thor #4 about the purpose, of the purpose of certain things. So,
right,
that does come. It sort of comes up, but not really.
Right, and basically she's just like, yeah, if you're using a sword, that you could appear weak, like your strength is in that weapon and not in yourself, kind of situation. But you'd have to read the article to get further clarification. And again, like I said, traditionally she's never needed it because she's had her fists and her lasso and her bracelets. So anyway, it makes a good point. That's all I was saying about that. Birds of Prey lands R rating, which surprise. I don't know. I don't know. I would have been more surprised if this came out to be a PG-13 movie. So go figure on that. But yeah, and it is an R rating for. Does it say here? It doesn't say here, but I thought it could have went ahead an article as to why. And it also points out this article points out that the other movies that have had R ratings being The Punisher, Blade, and Deadpool. So, yeah, that was an article I saw that did have reasons for it, but you can kind of sort of guess as to why there would be an R rating in a Birds of Prey movie, especially with Harley Quinn involved.
Yeah, especially. Yeah, I was about to say we're don't neglect the fact that Harley Quinn is in this movie. So yeah,
exactly. So use your imagination on that one. Next
up, Warner Brothers' Wile E. Coyote film drops an anvil on a director. The movie has found its director, according to Variety. Dave Green will direct Coyote vs. Acme, a live-action animation hybrid film centered around the Looney Tunes Prairie Wolf, who is best known for chasing his nemesis Roadrunner. Acme is the name of the corporation that provides Coyote with his arsenal, although none of the weapons have helped Coyote succeed in his crusade.
I mean, he's not wrong.
Yep.
One of these days. Actually, there might have been a cartoon that kind of was like, yeah, he finally got what he wanted, but whatever. Anyway, so I guess that's a weird one to come out. Sure. Oh wait, why is that there? I don't know. Mortal Kombat movie wraps filming, and we get the cast reaction.
Mortal Kombat.
Oh, anyway, first reported by comic book actor Ludi Lin, who's playing Liu Kang in the film, took to Twitter to celebrate the ending of the film. And then they cut to his Twitter and his Twitter and the subsequent video in question. Then the article goes on to say, basically a breakdown of who's playing who and what, and some other tweets surrounding that. So, yeah, folks, it's going to happen, whether you like it or not. The Mortal Kombat reboot is coming. Of course, I heard a good thing about Mortal Kombat 11, which is a sad thing, but hey, I'm not an MK fan. Did you see that? But on side note, did you see that cosplay that I tweeted for Chun-Li?
The bodybuilder?
Yes.
Someone else. I did not see yours, but I did see someone else, and I was frightened by it. But I think it was because of the meme itself that frightened me more.
Okay. Yeah, hey, look, it wouldn't surprise me.
Goodness gracious, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, if she did spinning bird kicks, I would not be surprised. So she's a well-built lady. Anyway, back to action.
Yeah, next up, Marvel's Runaways, the cast on what they're most looking forward to this season. I have watched the entire season. It's only 10 episodes.
Yeah, I have yet to do it.
I am all caught up on Runaways. It's streaming. It's good.
Oh, that's right. Because you have wait. So I know they have the first season on Disney Plus. No, Disney Plus.
Right.
But I know they have both the seasons on Hulu. So I don't know. At some point, the second season is probably going to go over to Disney Plus because I don't have Hulu.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I will probably end up catching up at some point.
Yeah, it was released like late last week, and I caught up on it over the weekend.
Right. Huh. Cool.
So I can take the next one too. Mild spoilers of Runaways. Runaways embraces Zavin's comic book roots with Clarissa Thibault. So yeah, they're definitely there. Don't want to spoil too much.
Oops, sorry.
What was that?
We'll find out in a minute.
Okay. There's an autoplay, huh?
Yeah, sucks.
It's okay. So yeah, I won't spoil too much about the comic book origins of Zavin, but they definitely put the character's origin into play in one
of the Runaways in a way, and fans of Runaways know it already. So just saying that name enough is pretty much enough to get sparked. So
yeah,
cool.
My sincere hope, and this is just a quickie tangent. My sincere hope is that Kevin Feige, when he reviews the hits and misses of Marvel television, sees Runaways as a hit and maintains.
Well, I've heard good things about Cloak and Dagger also, but
right. Oh, they do have a nice cameo in they have a guest appearance in one of the episodes.
Well, yeah, they do a crossover, yeah.
Right, they do one guest appearance, and it's a lot of fun. But definitely, I think Runaways was a hit. I think Cloak and Dagger could probably stand to be rejiggered just a little bit, but I think they've already gotten the awkward part of the story down, and I think they could maintain the two leads and redo it in a different setting, and I think they would be perfectly fine. So that's my personal plea to Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios when it comes to the remains of what is left behind by Marvel Television.
Understood. WandaVision reveals first look at adult Monica Rambeau in new set photos. So yeah.
Ooh, I read this. Ooh, there's spoilers. Ooh, there's teasers. Ooh.
Yes, indeed. So I won't go too much farther than that. And and also Sword is probably going to be it looks like it's going to be a thing in WandaVision.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. I am also going to take the next one that is related because another character apparently may be confirmed to appear on the show, and that one will be Agatha Harkness. Because where there's Scarlet Witch, there's Agatha Harkness.
I was about to say that's not that big a surprise, but I guess if you're not familiar with the Scarlet Witch and the Vision's history,
right?
Then it kind of
all tied, together. Now the question
it was more of a surprise that Monica Rambeau's in this show rather than Agatha Harkness. Let's be honest.
Well, that is absolutely true, but actually well, there was speculation of that news prior to this, but this kind of confirms a little bit more on that front. But yeah, because they've said that she was probably gonna be a part of it. But it's like it was just weird that's the case, especially given what the show is supposed to be, whatever it is, at the end of it. So, but now the question I have is it going to be old school, the Act of the Harkness, or is it going to be this newer version? That is the real question.
It's a good question.
Or maybe a little bit of both. We don't know.
Yeah, I was about to say, considering the track record that Marvel Studios has trying to update some of these characters, if there is an ultimate version or if there is a new version, they'll probably combine the two.
Right. Like you could start off with the old version and then she was like, oh, poof, she's back as the newer version. So next up.
Alrighty, next up, Kumail Nanjiani's workout to get ripped for Marvel's Eternals revealed. So yeah, Kumail Nanjiani dropped an Instagram post of himself like completely shredded. He's got like crazy vascularity around his biceps and like multiple sets of abs. He's like totally, like he totally took the Chris Pratt treatment to the level. Yeah. He actually went to the next level, I think. But I don't like. But the thing is, I don't remember we don't know what he looked like. I mean, we don't really know what Chris Pratt looked like other than being chunky.
Well, we know he was kind of stubby. We do. There was pictures of him as there were. As a matter of fact, when he got ripped, there were pictures, side by side pictures. But basically, it was his pictures of his character from Parks and Rec, and
right, exactly. I mean, I remember Kumail Nanjiani from The Big Sleep. Right. And I don't remember him being kind of schlubby, but I definitely don't remember him being jacked.
No, he wasn't. He was not ripped. He was kind of well, he was thinnish,
Yeah, just like a normal guy, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, but so that came out, and then it hit the social media, and of course, people were like, "Oh, he's using steroids," which shut up. But
really?
there was some of that kind of happened.
Goodness.
But regardless, the other thing that kind of made the rounds was Shang-Chi Eternals star picture and MCU crossover with their ripped bodies. So, Kumail Nanjiani's picture was shown alongside Simu Liu. Actually, I think it was Simu Liu who put the picture out, or who started it. And basically, if you're watching the video, you can see the tweet in question. It's like Harold and Kumar go to Planet Fitness.
I saw that. That was really funny.
Yeah, and then you see somebody else's tweet and the pictures of them two with their with their absences, whatnot.
That's pretty funny.
And that got a lot of rounds, including obviously from a lot of women. But hey, just in general. So
good for them.
Yeah. Hey,
next up, the New Mutants movie has who's swearing that it's going to be released in 2020. Charlie Heaton of from Stranger Things assured fans at convention in Manchester, England called For the Love of Sci-Fi. He assured fans the film would finally be released in 2020, attributing the delays to Disney's acquisition of Fox, which finalized earlier this year. On another note,
probably not the only thing.
That was not the entirety of it, right? I was just going to say that on another note, Bill Sienkiewicz was a guest on Fat Man Beyond this week with Kevin Smith and Mark Bernardin, and Sienkiewicz basically said that he had seen the movie and he was pretty jazzed by it. So.
Right, because they're still, as far as we know, with the reshoots and everything that may or may not have happened. I think they were doing the Demon Bear storyline.
Right.
So, and that is probably one of their more classic storylines. So we'll see how that turns out, if and or when it ever comes out. Next up, 50 Cent bringing League of Black Superheroes to Quibi with Trill League. So apparently, there's a TV adaptation that 50's doing of the Trill League comic book, which I've known about name but never seen anything on. And this upcoming streaming service Quibi, I've heard a couple of things about because there's another thing that's going to that I've heard something about, but I've never heard of it until this story came out. Anyway, first reported by Deadline, the show is based on writer-artist Anthony Piper's self-published series of the same name, which launched in 2015. And quote unquote, in an era of social injustice and internet trolls, a league of black superheroes, Trill League, is tasked with saving the world from monsters, supervillains, and haters of all kinds. Read the show's description. Get ready for this remixed edition of your favorite superheroes as the series satirizes modern American society. So I haven't seen the show, but I feel like there's a Boondocks parallel you could probably make from this. I don't know if that's the case or not. So if I'm wrong, I'm probably wrong. But I'm intrigued, I guess. Next up.
American God star Orlando Jones on getting screwed over and speaking out. So he had held his tongue for months about being let go from American Gods, the Stars TV show.
Yes.
And and he did not comment on his departure, how his departure was handled by producer Fremantle Media and the Stars Network. But he told Variety, I'm sorry?
Until recently.
Right. So, but he told Variety recently that he finally decided to stand up for himself and set the record straight on why he won't be seen in season 3 and how he feels he was disrespected by not getting the full truth for months, time that he could have spent working on other projects. So he assumed that someone would have said that he wasn't going to be in season 3, but and he assumed that someone would have reached out, but no one did. And Orlando Jones decided to come clean about his experience, and I guess there's more to it in the story.
There is very much more to the story because I've been seeing a little bit on this on the social media. There is a podcast that is in the show notes in the clickbait section, I believe, if you're so interested, from the Blurred Girl. Shout out to her. I don't know her personally, but whatever. With Orlando Jones about that, about the firing in his own words. But basically, it boils down to the showrunner of the show decided that this is not what that character and the voice that character has is not right for the show. So if you know anything about his character and what that character is representing, and the showrunner, who is, and this is kind of an important point, not black, saying that the voice of the character who is black is not needed. Matter of fact, it does actually say here. Let's see. At some point, yes, it says here. At some point I gotta say something, he said. So I repeated what they had said. All I can say is what I was told, and what I was told was angry, get shit done is the wrong message for Black America, and that the new showrunner, Chick Eagley, writes from a black male perspective. And again, he's not black. Which got the internet kind of rightly fired up for for reasons. It is also worth noting that, well, it may or may not be worth noting, but Orlando Jones this is basically mirroring something else that happened with Sleepy Hollow, because he got fired from that. Not for the same reason, obviously, but for some various dubious reasons that he got let go of the show just out of the blue. That show ended up going off the air, by the way. They're expecting the same to happen to this one. And on that note, I'll go ahead and take the second one. American Gods, Kayen Kim not returning for season 3, and Crispin Glover moves to guest star. So basically, 2 more people who are not going to be on the show. So according to this article, Crispin Glover is going to return, but as a guest star, and like I said, this other person is not going to be on the show. So sounds speculatively like the show's kind of going downhill fast.
Okay. Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, J.J. Abrams had the
Is that me?
I think that was me. Yeah, that is you.
Stupid autoplay.
Yeah, no, I hate it. It's So anyway.
It didn't even start right away, so I couldn't kill it right away. I was like, what happened?
Yeah. No big. So next up.
Next up is Last Up. Netflix orders new He-Man CG animated series. So it looks like Netflix is all in with the He-Man franchise, and good for them.
Mm-hmm. I believe I saw an article recently like there's going to be another one, and I'm not sure if it's besides this one or
is this the Kevin Smith one?
Yes, this is the Kevin Smith one. But I saw some, and I meant to get that article, but I didn't get a chance to before the show. But yeah, it sounds like either this is that second one they're talking about, and the original one was the first one, which I don't think that's the case. Oh wait, here we go. Along with Smith's project, rumors recently surfaced that Netflix could acquire Sony's live-action adaptation of He-Man. However, Netflix has yet to confirm it, so there is possibly another He-Man in live-action form could be out there somewhere. Yikes. Before we go into the comic book news, I would like to bring up the fact that in Age of 70, I believe you've seen this because I showed it to you. And we've talked about it before, which is the noise you heard earlier, in that there is a full gadget-filled race from the new Fast and Furious animated show. I was going to put it in the article in the lineup, but I apparently either didn't or I must have erased it, one of the two. But yeah, there's a clip from the show, and I'm not sure. I see what it is, but I'm still not sure what this is.
Mm-hmm.
So, did you actually watch it?
No, I've been kind of holding off. I wanted to stay mostly positive heading into Star Wars.
I mean, it's not. Well, wait. What does it have to do with this, though?
I'm just saying. I didn't want to be brought down.
I know that's fair. Well, actually, so I would say it's only a race, and there's a little bit of something that is, and I can understand your thinking on this. Sure, I totally can, because watching it was like, this is interesting, but at the same time, it is still, it is definitely for the kids. I'll just say that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but anyway, that is out there. You can go check that out. And also, before we get into the news, because actually that Fast and Furious thing kind of plays into the first article, sorta, kinda, not really. It is worth notice that March solicits are out. So some of this news is going to be from that. So going into that, which granted, outside of this first one, Fast and Furious Crossroads game promises heists and bro hugs and
I think that was me.
That was definitely you.
I think I opened up the article to watch it later, and it started playing on its own. So.
Yeah, it did. That's what happened to me earlier. So
that's lame.
Oh, yeah. That's because I hate autoplaying.
I was about to say, I think I was more excited for the Top Gun trailer that came out this past week.
Yeah, which I still haven't watched because
it's a lot of fun.
Actually, I take it back. I did watch it. I'm lying about that. I did.
It's
absolutely
fun.
Watch it. Yeah, it looks good. I don't know if I'll actually watch the movie, but I am definitely intrigued. But anyway, so there's going to be a Fast and Furious video game, folks. There have been a few in the past. That's worth noting. So the Game Awards happened this past week. In fact, the last time we recorded, pretty sure it was happening that night. Matter of fact, it was happening that night. And this was one of the trailers for that. And Vin Diesel and Michelle Rodriguez was there to show the trailer, to debut the trailer. And I don't know if Michelle was high or something, but it was kind of amusing when that happened. But regardless, the trailer was shown, and people online had a lot of fun with this because they basically likened it to PS2 graphics, and
no.
Yeah, the game doesn't look that great. But actually, now granted, it comes out in May, so they do have time to do some fine tuning of it. But yeah, it wasn't looking too swift. And I say that because the last Fast and Furious related game that I've played was a Forza game. They did a little thing for in between one of the movies or whatever, but it was Forza, but it just had some Fast and Furious skin stuff on it. It's a racing game with a racing engine. It's good. This one, ooh, it's a doozy. Anyway, you can go check that out if you are so inclined. It'll be here in May. And I was going to say there was another movie related one called Showdown that was between 5 and 6, I believe. That one also was not that great. It was not great looking, and I'm pretty sure they didn't play that well either. So I don't have great hopes for this one, but we'll see. But yeah, Vin Diesel, Michelle Rodriguez, and Tyrese Gibson will reprise their roles in said video game.
Okay.
Also. Yeah. Next.
All right, next up, The Wolf Among Us 2 is back in development for the Xbox console. Yay, I guess.
Well, I would like to think we kind of had a little bit of actually, well, not on this one, but we had a little behind the scenes. But yeah, so basically, Telltale, who folded under dubious means, and I want to say screw them for this, but they're kind of back, but also at the same time, it's not them doing it fully. So Skybound Games, I think, has taken up. Oh, excuse me, pardon me. Has taken up the mantle, which I think that's something they kind of been wanting to do. But yeah, they're putting a lot of not only putting out Wolf Among Us 2, but they're also putting out the older stuff again. So it's good, but it's bad because a lot of people got taken out of work behind the closing of that studio, and it was terrible. So I don't know how this is gonna do, but I know, and there are also fans who are like, I don't care about anything, they just want this. So, which is another sad state of affairs, but that's gaming for you. Next up, the Silver Surfer reveals an intimate new superpower. We kind of already talked about this, sort of. But he's intangible now, and he, like we said earlier when we were talking about Annihilation, he basically shared his body with Bob Reynolds, the Sentry. It was, which is not the first time, because I believe it was Annihilation Silver Surfer when he first did it, and where this first came out, and he spent the better half of since then like this, which weird. I don't know. Next.
Alrighty. We spoke about this already in this week's Avengers issue. Avengers reveals Galactus. 3 former heralds of Galactus uniting to stop cosmic Armageddon in the form of the Star Brand.
We 3 heralds, whatever. Anyway, hey, it's Christmas time. You can do that. So yes, Silver Surfer, the not so Silver Surfer, Fire Lord, and Terex all are banding together to find the Star Brand for whatever other reason. Well, to basically just, I guess, to snuff it out. I think it was, where's Frankie Ray? That was the first thing I thought when I saw them.
Nova.
Yeah.
I thought she was dead.
No, she's not dead. She is definitely not dead, because she has shown up within the last, say, 4 or 5 years. Definitely, she's not dead.
That works.
Yeah. The Avengers teases Earth's mightiest villains. So we kind of alluded to this earlier, forming a new team. And I said, when I saw this article, I'm like, well, this is something that's never happened before. Surely the Distinguished Competition has never had anything like this happen ever. Which, so basically the likes of Mephisto, as a matter of fact, heck, even in Marvel, because if you think about a specific run of the Avengers in the past. But anyway, Hyperion, Ursa Major, Namor, Dracula, Mephisto, Nighthawk. Which Nighthawk one is kind of a weird one, given his most recent. But then again, I don't. This may or may not be the same one from that David Walker series anyway. So, but they will all come together based on their new mutual hatred of the Marvel Universe's premier super team, according to this article. If you're watching the video, you have seen the cover. Again, Mephisto 1 is getting around, and I feel like this is going to have shades of Siege at some point. Oh wait, there's somebody else I'm missing. The red figure whose name is escaping me, also from Russia, because she's basically over the Russian super soldiers thing.
The red figure? I can't see.
Yes. If you're watching
Red Widow.
Is it Red Widow?
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like it was her name, but yeah. Regardless. So basically, as we said earlier with Avengers, there are plot points that are coming back. Actually, a few plot points that are coming back together, because the Namor thing kind of happened separately from the Dracula thing and the Squadron Supreme thing and the Russian thing. So now they're all gonna come together. It's like some Legion of Doom. And Mephisto's gonna have a hand in it, which again, there's got to be something going on with that Mephisto thing, because he's shown up way too many places for it not to be. But I'm, beating that horse dead at this point. Moving right along.
I would trying to whatchamacallit, I made the mistake of changing my view of
Excuse me.
the window with our video on it, so I had to change back. Iron Man, spoiler alert. Tony Stark goes old school classic armor for Ultron agenda. This was in last week's issue. So
Yeah.
this is leading into
Wait, I thought it was this week's issue.
Oh, is it this week's issue?
Yeah. 19.
Oh, well, that's the last issue of this run leading into 2020. I know that he jumped into the old school armor in the end of last week's end of the previous issue. That's what it is.
Got it. Okay, so yeah, so basically going into this issue. So yeah, we didn't talk about it because neither one of us read it yet.
Yep.
So which armor was it? Was it the classic
80s armor? Yeah, the classic 80s armor, no nose.
Okay. That was like similar to Turia maybe, but no.
Before that, the classic armor that he used,
whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. Just before the Silver Centurion.
Gotcha. The classic one. The one with the roller skates.
Goodness gracious.
That's funny. Anyway, so yeah, that's the thing that happened. I need to catch up on the series, I guess, because I'm slightly interested in what the 2020 things. Speaking of, Rescue returns to battle Marvel's Iron Man 2020. So Pepper Potts is going to be suited up again. Again, this is coming out of March Solicits. So, yep. And you can see the cover.
Yep.
If you're watching the video. Which, hey, guess what? Watch the video sometimes. Good stuff. Next.
So, spoiler alert for this week's Spider-Man number 3 from J.J. Abrams and Sarah Pichelli. It introduces Iron Man's replacement, the young superhero Ironheart, again, to the Abrams version of the Spider-Verse. Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. I guess Abrams found out about it. Whatever. Speaking of that said, Spider-Man, Abrams and Pichelli Spider-Man finale pushed back 11 weeks.
It's not as bad as Doomsday Clock.
No, not quite as bad. I mean, Abrams at this point is a busy man, and even though it's his son's thing, I'm sure he's,
yeah, he's probably got a strong hand in it.
Exactly. So Marvel has informed retailers that Spider-Man number 5, the finale of J.J. Abrams, Henry Abrams, and Sarah Pichelli's alt reality limited series, has been postponed in 3 months. Originally solicited for January 29th, the final issue is now set for April 15th.
Oof. And
I know one Tim Dog 98, who's probably already aware of this, I don't know how he feels about it, given that it was this particular week. And I believe was the last couple of times, but I'm not sure. One would postulate that he might like this series. I have not read it. Don't know. Spider-Woman gets...
Oh, wait, I was about to say, wait, hold on. I think this is my story because I have some feelings about this.
Do it.
Spider-Woman gets a surprise redesign for her new ongoing, and it's ugly as sin. I think Dave Johnson is responsible for this monstrosity, and I understand the aesthetic he's going for, but it's ugly. Oh, it's awful. Oh, seriously, shots fired. Oh, it's just oh, it's so bad. Oh, it's bad. It's bad.
I got the video. You can see, so you can see the suit in question, which looks like a mix of Spider-Man's black costume with the top of Spider-Man's the shoulders of Spider-Man's costume,
so bad.
Mixed with a little bit of yellow from her old costume. From her last costume.
You have the web page that has the character sheets on it.
So what?
The character sheets. There is an article out there that contains the character sheets. The front, back, and side views of the costume.
Yeah. The artist sketches of it. Exactly. I don't have it, but no. But I mean, well, actually, wait a minute.
If it's in that story, you just have to scroll down.
Yeah, but
there you go. So that actually looks better than that promo image, but it's still ugly as sin.
It's not that bad.
Oh, it's bad. It's bad. I love the suit jacket, the little jacket outfit that she had.
It was all right. Yeah.
I thought that was like a really cool design. This is just bad.
I missed the classic one. Actually, there's shades of Superior. It's more akin to Superior Spider-Man suit.
Yeah, it's a mix of the aesthetic from Superior and Miles.
Yeah. So Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's that bad, but yeah.
Oh man, it's bad. Oh, it's bad. Shoot it dead. Oh,
Anyway,
bad.
Marvel's Spider-Man script book. So basically, there is a script book for the PS4 video game Spider-Man. So if you are a fan of the art and well, not the art, excuse me, the story of that said Spider-Man game, which is a good game, by the way, if I hadn't said so many times before, it will be released January 29th on hardcover. Does it have any? Yeah, that's pretty much that. There's not really much else to say about it. So yeah, cool. Go check it out if you're so inclined. My one gripe about that whole thing is like he has on shoes. How in the world? You know what? Never mind. I'm not gonna go back on that again. That's another thing for another time. So you get the good news.
Okay. The good news. Where am I? Good news. Still searching for the good news. Meet Amulet, the newest superhero coming to Miss Marvel number 13 in March 2020. Okay. So it's going to be a supersized assist for Kamala Khan in Magnificent Miss Marvel number 13 coming to comic shops in March. So it's going to be a brand new character called Amulet, aka Fadi. What's this name? Fadiala is coming to Jersey City from the Midwest. And he's bringing some massive superpowers with him. Okay.
So it's worth noting that Amulet was co-created by Saladin Ahmed and popular Jordanian American illustrator Sarah Alfagi. I apologize if I'm screwing up your name, but I have definitely seen that name and some of her work on Alfagi.
Yeah,
that sounds right. But I have seen a lot of her work on social media, so that's cool. And I know she's pretty geeked out about it from her tweet, and even Sana Amanat, gave praise to it. So and G. Willow Wilson also was excited about it. So
okay,
so that's cool. So yeah, she was the one who did the design for Amulet, along with Saladin Ahmed, and you can see the said character sheet, at the bottom of the article, if you are watching this, watching the video. I kind of wonder, since that thing with the suit, I don't think that's the case, but because if you see what this cover, Miss Marvel, Kamala is back to her old suit. And we do know that the new suit's kind of has taken a life of its own at this point. So I'm kind of wondering if that has something to do with this or not, which I'm thinking probably not. But we'll find out when that happens in March. Next up.
You got next.
Kurt Busiek's. Wait, let me make sure that's the right one. I'm pretty sure it is, but yes. Kurt Busiek's Marvel Snapshots launches with the Submariner. So Kurt Busiek is assembling an amazing aggregation of talent for Marvel Snapshots. And this is basically says this March, prepare to see the greatest moments of Marvel's 80-year history told like never before. In Marvel Snapshots, industry level legend Kurt Busiek will bring together incredible creative teams for 8 standalone double-sized issues showcasing Marvel's most beloved characters from the Golden Age to today. So basically, it's something like Marvel's, according to this article. So, and as you can see, there's I guess that's the first couple that's starting off with Submariner. And actually, I will go ahead and take the second one because it is also related.
Okay.
Dorkin and Dyer visit Johnny Storm's high school reunion in Marvel's Snapshot Fantastic Four. So, after the announcement of Marvel Snapshots, this is the second. Well, this is the second creative team that is has been announced for this project.
Milk and Cheese, Evan Dorkin and Sarah Dyer.
Yes. And if I didn't mention, I think Alan Brennett and Jerry Ordway are, I believe, were doing that the first one with Submariner, I think. Anywho, so yeah, some TV folk are doing not TV folk, actually one of the TV folk. But regardless, hey, guess what? You got to get in some kind of way, and yeah, that's the thing. Moving right along.
Did you read this book, Star Wars: The Rise of Kylo Ren, #1, that came out?
It came out this week, and I did not get a chance for it. And I didn't. As a matter of fact, Star Wars Empire Ascendant, which is the bridge between the last volume of Star Wars and the next one coming up, came out this week, and I didn't get a chance to read either one of them.
Gonna have to sit down and read that too.
Yeah, and this one's kind of particularly interesting because of what it has in it, which is
basically a review of the last 30 years of Star Wars history between between the Battle of Endor and basically what happens in The Force Awakens, covering where we got all this stuff happening to Kylo Ren.
Right. So we finally found out where the hell the Knights of Ren come from.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't really say that much about the in the movie outside of the fact that they were a thing and brought them up. And I was about to say something, but yes, we see where they come from, along with some other things around. And apparently, yeah, as it says here, Ren is both a name and a way of life, which I guess is true because it doesn't say, they never said anything about that in the movie. Moving right along, Marvel's Darth Vader will introduce a face from Anakin's past. So this is also coming from the solicits. Wait, are they bringing Padme back? In the wake of shocking revelation, the Empire Strikes Back, Darth Vader continues his quest for revenge against everyone who hid his son Luke from him. But when his search takes him deep into his past, he discovers a hauntingly familiar face that will challenge everything he knows. I'm going to take a stab that it's probably Padme, especially given that this weird cover of her is being shown here. So, yeah, I guess it makes sense in some kind of way. Next up.
Okay, next up. So you did the past. Marvel opens the door to a new magical saga with Strange Academy. We talked about this before, but now it's in the solicitations that because it was announced by the AP.
Right.
We had this story before that
I wasn't sure. That's why I put it back in here.
All right, Strange Academy is going to launch this March as a new ongoing series helmed by Scotty Young and Humberto Ramos. That's a good creative team right there. And they're going to be bringing together a new class of students from Earth, Weird World, Asgard, and the Dark Dimension and beyond to learn how to control their gifts in the mystic arts under the tutelage of Doctor Strange, Brother Voodoo, the Ancient One, Scarlet Witch, Magic, Hellstrom, and all of Marvel's most iconic magicians. Where is Professor Dumbledore?
Right. And apparently Zelma Stanton's going to be there too, which is great. So I'm actually kind of excited for this because I mean, obviously the X-Men have had a similar type book. I don't think this is going to stick around that long. I have a strange feeling, but I am curious to see what this is going to be.
So long as they play something that looks like Quidditch.
Stop it. And I'm afraid that might actually happen. Although there's this one dude down here that looks like Quentin Quire, and I'm not happy about that. Yeah, I know it's not him, or is it? I don't know. Like, where's Nico? Like, she's got to show up, right?
That's a good point.
I mean, she might drop out. Oh wait, because she's right here on the. I guess there's a trailer for it. So, Magic shows out from the X-Men Talisman. There's Nico right there, Scarlet Witch, and Hellstrom.
Oh, as a teacher, ooh,
yeah. So that makes sense. That's what I was wondering about that. So cool. Like I said, that sounds interesting. X-Force #7 recruits Oscar Bazaldua. Right. If I screwed up her name, as new artists. So he is replacing Joshua Cassara as artist of February 12th, X-Force number 7. Basil Duel is coming into X-Force after a long run on Loki. Okay, that's why I've seen that name before. In 2 issues of Amazing Spider-Man. Cassara has drawn all the X-Force issues so far and is scheduled to return.
Oh, he's coming back. That's good.
Yeah, for issue number 8.
He's doing a good job on the book. That's why.
Yeah.
I like Cassara on this book.
Yeah, he's been doing some good work on there. But Marvel hasn't given any reason for the change. So, yeah. Which that seems to be a thing that happens more lately than not. Next up.
All right. So apparently X-Men and X-Force solves House of X's big Wolverine mystery.
So I alluded to this earlier in talking about it because I know you haven't read it yet.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll leave it at that. So I kind of alluded to it earlier. And
so that's this week's X-Force.
Huh? Yes.
That's this week's X-Force. Okay. I'll make sure to read that right away.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I alluded to that earlier, so we don't have to go back on that. So Shi'ar, Brood, Starjammers coming to Earth and March's X-Men, which not that big of a surprise. Where's Brew? I mean, we know where Brew is, but
he's hanging out with
actually, it's kind of funny. I just said that. It says March's X-Men in number 8 and 9, the Shi'ar and the Imperial Guard, the Brood, the Starjammers are all coming to Earth. The Shi'ar and the Starjammers have both been featured in Jonathan Hickman's X-Men book earlier this year. This is true, but this marks the Brood's Dawn of X debut. Albeit the appearance by the X-Men's Brew on the cover teases some connection there.
Good.
Yeah. And we know Brew's been with Agents of Wakanda, so we know he's around.
Right, and all of these characters have been in the cosmic books and even in the Avengers books right now. So
yeah, and the X books also because we've seen them in no shortage of places recently. I guess that's the reason why the X-Men, why the New Mutants come back into space, because the first line here says the New Mutants jaunt into space to bring back co-founder Cannonball into their titular title will result in the X-Men side of the Marvel Cosmic coming to Earth in what the publishers called intergalactic trouble.
Intergalactic planetary. All right.
Okay, so that brings me to something I was going to say on social media, and this is not so much of a spoiler, but some would probably consider it one. And I was just going to say, you can say what you want to say about, Rise of the Skywalker, good or bad, but at least he didn't put sabotage.
He didn't work it into the movie somehow.
Yeah, he didn't. Like, granted, he does have a character that is, which I don't remember if that character even showed up in this one. Now that I think about it, but he did put a character that was Beastie Boys influenced into the Marvel Cinema that is now canon. It's the Star Wars universe that is now canon. But yes, there was no intergalactic plague and no sabotage. And I'm looking at you, Star Trek. Which happened in not 1 but 2 back-to-back movies.
No, they weren't back-to-back. They were the first one and the third one, right?
Wait. Actually, you might be right. Actually, yeah, you're right.
Put it in Con. It wasn't in Con.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Now that I think about it. So it wasn't back-to-back because it was the first one. He was a kid, and then it came up later on in the third one, which I still like those movies. But yeah, they were fun.
All back to the third one. I like that one.
Yeah,
it was just fun. I was just like, he's just like
fun. Yeah. That's basically what I'm saying about it. They were fun.
I kind of laughed. All right, next
too, but it was like, especially the way that the song played out at the time of the movie in the third one. That was pretty. I was like, all right, that was actually pretty good.
Yeah. All right, President Bartlett. All right, Cable is what's next. He's the latest mutant to get a Dawn of X solo title.
You don't have to use J.J. Abrams anymore in any more movies. Let him cook for a minute and get some other people, please. Thank you. Next up, like you said, yeah. So Cable's getting his own book, and as a matter of fact, in the solutions, we've come to find out they're expanding the X-Men line a bit. And I know there's been some people who are like, does it necessarily need it or whatever it gets maybe, and going off of what Hickman said, which. Valid, but at the same time, Hickman can have all his opinions if he want, but if the heroes want to put some more books out there, they're going to do it. Not saying that's one way or another, but it's kind of, I don't know. I'm not surprised by this, put it this way. This is basically actually come March, it'll probably be like wave 2 of the X books, if I'm not mistaken. Because the first wave is the 4 books that are out now. It has 4 or 5 books now. So March will be wave 2 with this Cable book.
Mhm.
So Jerry Duggan's doing the writing. Phil Noto's doing the art. Okay, I might have to check this out.
Yeah, I was about to say that's a good sign. If Phil Noto's doing the art, that's definitely a good sign.
Now, whether he stays on it, that'll be the question.
Well, it depends. You know, if they give him a decent amount of lead time, that's a good thing. He had a good solid run on Black Widow for a while.
Right. Which that series did not last that long, but he's also doing a Darth Vader book with Charles Soule. So not saying he couldn't do both, but I'm just saying,
Right.
whatever that and whatever else he's ended up doing. So might be something. And this also comes along with that that Wolverine book, which is I think comes out in February according to this. Yeah, it's not in February. So the second wave of X books will be starting in February with this Cable book coming out. And yeah. So cool. Next up, X-Men and X-Men and Top Secret, quote unquote, DC book lead 2020 Free Comic Book Day cold titles. So no surprise. Hey, guess what? Free Comic Book Day comes up every year. May, first Saturday in May, I believe. Yes, that is correct. And already there are some books that are lined up to come out from that. As a matter of fact, I will go ahead and take this. No, I won't, because it has nothing to do with that one. I'm going to skip one, by the way, and just go ahead and get that one out of the way. Power Rangers earns a Free Comic Book Day 2020 title, which earns is a weird word to use. But anyway, Boom Studios today proudly announced the Power Rangers 2020 Free Comic Book Day special, a free special issue arriving in comic books on Free Comic Book Day, which is May 2nd, 2020. So, and it looks like it's maybe centered around the Ranger Slayer, which is AKA Old Kimberly, I guess you could say. Which, if you haven't been keeping up with that stuff, including that first event, you might be a little lost on that. Which you should read, because it's a pretty good read. Anyway, now we can go back.
Right, so Marvel and Funko are teaming up for a Free Comic Book Day 2020 exclusive mystery box. So, have fun with getting that mystery box for Funko.
I mean, hey, look, as a person who have bought into a good bit of those Funko boxes, and this is not an ad for them, and because I'm no longer getting them in. Well, it wasn't an ad for them in the first place, but regardless, those boxes are actually not bad. So I'm not sure what's in this box either. But yeah, and actually they're also talking about Emma Frost. That doesn't look like a Funko, but is that going to be in it? Sounds like, or is come alongside of it, I guess. So yeah, that's the thing that's happening. We don't know what's in the box. What's in the box. We don't know. We'll find out at some point. Marvel moves New York City office to 6th Avenue skyscraper with a Trump connection. Dun dun dun.
No, I was just gonna say,
heard that also. I mean, given that we know who's at the head of Marvel Entertainment, there's probably no surprise there. But according to a Marvel representative, the company's previous office at 135 West 50th Street were closed on Wednesday evening at the time of this article, which was on the 9th. Were closed to facilitate the move to his new offices on 1296th Avenue, which opened for business the next Monday. So basically, it's like a block over. And yeah, this article kind of goes into the making of those bids and gets into the connection to Trump, which is apparently Trump's organization, who shouldn't be owning anything because it's the president, owns about 30% stake in the building as of 2016. So I would say it's a good thing the impeachment hearings are going on, but I got a feeling something might not come the way we want it to. Anyway, that's the thing, folks. Moving right along.
Next up, with that new miniature Marvel game called Marvel Crisis Protocol, There is a new character breakdown for Captain Marvel. So if you're interested in this game, please look this up.
Agent 70, you know you want this.
Ah,
Look at it.
not right away, but you never know.
I bet you if they had a Thor figure, you'd be all. No, I'm just kidding.
They probably will have all the basic Avengers. So
they may have already have a Thor figure already out there. Now that I'm thinking about it, but yeah, I've seen some things of the game. I'm not a big, miniatures thing person myself, but I'm like, yeah, the game looks all right. Oh, that's cool. Diamond Select toys in stores now. In game, Bruce Lee, Batman Returns, and more. So there's a Bruce Lee figure that's out there. In the classic yellow suit, there's a Wonder Woman with sword. There's a Batman, whatever that thing is. Vinny Mates with him and Catwoman. Looks like it's from Batman Returns. There's a Green Goblin. That actually doesn't look terribly bad. There's Rescue from Endgame. There's Cap with the shield. Oh, here we go. Another figure for Agent 70. It's Cap with the hammer.
Oh, it's worthy. It's worthy Cap. That's pretty cool.
Worthy Cap. There's Captain Marvel from the movie. And that's pretty much it. So,
although I already have my worthy Cap in Marvel Legends form, it's pretty cool.
It's going to be $50, and he's holding it up.
It's funny.
Let's see, and they also have it's $150 for this Captain Marvel. That's a lot.
It's steep, but it's a statue.
It is a statue, yes. And the Rescue is going to be $50 also, and the Green Goblin's also $50, and the other stuff's going to be whatever prices there are. So yeah,
that's select stuff, man.
Yeah, indeed. Wait, how much is that Bruce Lee? Because that's actually not bad. $50. Yeah. So most of the stuff on here, with the exception of that, and the Wonder Woman and the Batman stuff, is $50. Next.
All right. Mezco unleashes the KG Beast for the 1/12th collective. So it's actually a pretty cool looking figure. It's complete with 3 head portraits, including an unmasked Anatoly Nyazev, I think it is. Yeah, Nyazev.
That's right.
Yeah. Sculpt. So that's cool.
You can see everything that comes with it if you're watching the video. There you go. Is that how he's classically looked?
Yes.
Okay. I don't, I have heard that name, and I think it's stupid because DC's got crazy names, but I also know he's come up recently.
He's been around for a while, though.
Right. Yeah, that I knew, but you can buy Dark Side Ray's Switchblade lightsaber for a cool $1,600. According to the byline of this article, for when you absolutely positively would need the weirdest lightsaber possible. It's not the weirdest lightsaber possible by far. It is a Switchblade one, but that's not. I mean, some would argue that the crossblade one's a little bit weirder. But regardless, hey, that's a thing you can buy. I don't think you can actually cut people with it, but that's a lot.
That's a lot for a toy.
Yeah, I mean, it's good looking. Don't get me wrong, but that's a lot. Anyway, so yeah, that's the thing. It's yours if you got that kind of money. If you got that kind of money, give it to Comic Book Chronicles, please. Thank you.
So next up, Archie Comics' characters are joining Super 7's Reaction Figures line. So good for them. It's good to see them in plastic.
Finally. Actually, not finally.
I don't think I've honestly never seen Archie characters in action figure form. Have you?
I feel like there's been some in the deep past, but definitely not like within our span.
I mean, I've been to retro toy stores. I've never seen an Archie figure anywhere.
Right. I feel like there probably is, but I don't know that offhand myself. So this could very well be something new. I definitely seen an Archie. I feel like I've seen an Archie that's a little bit bigger than this.
I was about to say I definitely dig the retro styling.
Yeah, truly. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, the classic versions of some would say the classic versions of those characters.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Archie Andrews' Pure Heart identity revealed. because DC can't be the only ones doing it, or other places. Revealed, and that's me editorializing, in Archie Jumbo Comics Digest number 305. So basically, it sounds like the if you are familiar with the Crusaders from the Archie Comics line, Archie goes to meet up with them. Excuse me. Basically has a crossover with them, sounds like, and they're gonna be back again.
Okay.
So, yeah. And he reveals his identity to, I guess, the head of the new challengers or something. Which there's a preview pages here, but we won't get into that because you just saw them flashing. Next
up, as we move into the home stretch, ladies and gentlemen, the Dark Multiverse proves that, spoiler alert, Terra is the most dangerous Teen Titan. So basically, this was a one-shot from, I believe it was last week, that was related to this Dark Multiverse stuff that explored. It was kind of a what if, and explored what if one thing different happened during the Judas contract, and Terra's betrayal played out differently, and she basically took over the entire world and destroyed almost everything in it.
Right. And just like the ones previously, those pretty much, like you said, there are what ifs. So Crisis tie-in comic brings an unusual Silver Age hero into the Arrowverse, and that is Bebo, the super monkey. I don't know who that is.
Beppo.
Yeah, it might be Beppo.
Oh, okay.
Look at the Beppo. Beppo the super monkey. Still don't know who that is, so it doesn't really matter. But regardless, written by Marv Wolfman and Mark Guggenheim, with artists Tom Grummett, Danny Mickey, Chris Sotomayor, and Wes Abbott. The Council's short story finds Lex Luthor's of the multiverse assembling in an effort to stop the Animator wave and maybe take over the world while they're at it. So in response, a legion of Superman and women have gathered to stop them from taking advantage of the crisis, Beppo among them. Okay.
All right. Next up, Wonder Woman and The Flash, both titles of DC Comics' books, return to legacy numbering in 2020, starting with number 750. So they're choosing that big round anniversary number to go back to legacy numbering.
Finally, I guess. Which The Flash just did his 750, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Not sure. I thought it was coming up.
Oh no, so February 26th also sees the release of Flash 750. Okay, so follow with those. Okay, so yeah, so that one hadn't started yet. I knew I've seen stuff on it. I just wasn't sure if it had come out yet. So okay, so yeah, cool. Legacy numbering. Let's keep doing that. First look, Strange Adventures number 1, Zeta Beams this March, is basically a preview for that Strange Adventures book with a little bit Tom King and Mitch Gerards. So if you're missing that team up, yeah, you can check out the preview pages here. Also, Doc Shaner is also doing some art. I enjoy his stuff, so cool. Next.
Alrighty, next up, the Joker horns in on Batman Dylan Dog crossover in number 0 preview. So there's going to be a Dylan Dog Batman number 0, and good lord, is released by Italian publisher Sergio Bonelli Editor, which is my reaction to who Dylan Dog was.
Or you could say who?
Yeah, exactly. So, apparently this is the first in a planned 5-part series by DC and SBE, Sergio Bonelli Editor.
Yes.
All right.
There are probably people out there who know who Dylan Dog is. We are not that versed. And I think that's probably not even an English. Matter of fact, it says here, yeah.
It's Italian.
Yeah, it's Italian. So there you go. But I think Dylan Dog may have been translated into English previously. I'm not sure. Regardless, hey, that's the thing that's happening. Curse of the White Knight finally exposes the dark truth of the Waynes. I meant to read that last issue. This is a spoiler for the last issue, issue number 5, which I think came out last week, and I meant to read it, and I totally did not. But apparently, No surprise, Dwayne's been in some dirt in the past. I'm probably oversimplifying it because again, I hadn't had a chance to read it yet, but apparently that issue gets into it, which was the whole crux of this arc. Oh, I don't want to say arc. This miniseries, which is the second one. So yeah, and Azrael came back into the fold, and this was pretty much all set out by the Joker and that kind of stuff. Again, I have been enjoying it, just not caught up with it. Next up,
Darkseid creates the next generation of new gods in 2020. So this is from March Solicits, and in several, I guess in title scheduled to go on sale March 2020, including Justice League Odyssey number 19, and I guess they're going to be dealing with this New Gods issue with Jessica Cruz actually being resurrected. I guess that character is back. I didn't even know she was dead.
Yeah, so we talked about this in the past because apparently I thought she came back by now though. So she basically died and came back with the power of, or was going to come back with the power of Darkseid. And I haven't been keeping up with Odyssey, so I'm not sure if that has happened yet or in the midst of. So yeah, and apparently 19, which is coming up in March, I guess. We'll see. Yeah, I think she's back by now. Actually, now that I think about it, she's back by now and has Darkseid's powers. And it's going on from there. I've been meaning to catch up on Odyssey just to see what's going on in that one, along with a couple other books on that line, but just haven't. So yeah, sound like there's going to be some new guys and maybe partially the team. Because I believe there might have been a shakeup of the team in relation to Jessica's death. So I don't know. Let's see. Next up, Robert Kirkman and Chris Samney to launch new ongoing comic book series Firepower this May. And this looks like from this, just like this dude's doing a Hadouken, or not a Hadouken. Well, it could be a Hadouken. It could be a Kamehameha wave. We don't know, but that's what it looks like he's doing on this cover. So the New York Times bestselling Eisner Award-winning comic titans Robert Kirkman is teaming up with Eisner Award-winning artist Chris Samney, Eisner Award-winning colorist Matt Wilson, and letterer Wes Wooten to bring fans an all-new full-color, action-packed ongoing series Firepower, which launches in May from Image Skybound in May 2020. And he says, getting to create a whole new world with his own mythology and rules is always the highlight of my life. Getting to do that with Chris Samney is definitely a high water mark in this dusty old career of mine, says Kirkman. With a massive cast of characters populating the sprawling, globe-spanning epic, Chris has proven more than adept in handling anything I've thrown at him in the time that we've been toiling away on this series. Kung Fu, Fireballs, Chris Samney, Crazy Action, Chris Samney, Chris Samney.
All right.
What more could I say to get you excited about this book? He's kind of got a point.
Okay.
Actually, it really kind of seems like Fire Force, but I don't know. I don't know that for sure. There's preview pages and kind of going into what the book is about below. Next up.
After successful debuts this fall, Vault Comics has announced that 3 of its new series will be renewed for exciting new story arcs in 2020. Sarah and the Royal Stars will begin its second arc in February with issue number 6. The epic fantasy series written by John Sway of Run, Love, Kill, drawn by Audrey Mock from Archie, colored by Raul Angulo from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and lettered by Jim Campbell, Wasted Space, and designed by Tim Daniel, will see its first arc collected in a trade paperback edition in January 2020. Right, and Money Shot, The Plot, and Sarah are getting renewed for 2020.
Mm-hmm. Which I know we kind of talked about Money Shot at one point when it came out. So
that's the one with Sarah Beatty, right?
Correct.
All right.
Next up, Dynamite announces launch of new prose imprint, Dynamite Books. The new line will begin with Nancy A. Collins on Vampirella. And I believe, yes, there is a Shaft book that is also coming. Is David F. Walker doing it? Oh, wait. As for Shaft, the original novel, Dynamite returned it to print in 2016. Now actor Will Dixon will star in the audiobook. So I want to say this is the David F. Walker. I might not be wrong. I might not be right about that. Is this the David F. Walker book that they're doing into an audiobook? Not sure. It doesn't quite say here. But regardless, Lightning said it include new audiobooks from previously published novels, beginning with the original Shaft novel by Ernest Tidyman, SEAL Team 6, No More, the series, and future novels on the list will include more vampy and more particularly, so basically they got stuff going on.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's going to be a book and audiobook forms of some of Dynamite's properties. Valiant's Exo Man of War relaunches in 2020 as a fresh start to the character. Which I meant to ask Tim to respond to that tweet that was out there. Anyway, Valiant Entertainment relaunches its flagship Exo Man of War title with its incoming writer Dennis Hopeless, Hallam, and the artist Emilio Laso. First reported by Heat Vision, the new series will be a fresh start, quote unquote, for the character. So yeah, we don't know that we're not that versed in Valiant stuff around here, although we have had people in the past to read some stuff. Maybe we'll jump on. Who knows? We'll see. Next.
All right, next up, Judge Dredd is going to debut in a new series in March called Judge Dredd False Witness by writer Brendan Easton and artist Kel Zama. And it's going to be a science fiction social commentary on the world. So it's
Judge Dredd, basically. So it's Judge Dredd, basically.
Right, exactly. So it's going to go down the road of a story about immigration, protests, and human trafficking in Mega City 1. Interesting.
I am the law.
Which one are you quoting? Carl Urban or Sylvester?
I haven't seen that one. The Stallone one. I hadn't seen the Carl Urban one.
I haven't seen either.
So versatile dude, who knows? Transformers versus Terminator, because they can't stop at the crossovers in 2020 event. I'm actually slightly intrigued by this. The Hollywood Reporter has broken the news that two 80s era robot franchises, technically Terminator. Anyway, whatever. Franchises are colliding in 2020, Transformers and the Terminator in comic books. In partnership between IDW Publishing and Dark Horse Comics, who have the comic book rights to their respective franchises, Transformers versus the Terminator is framed as revisiting, quote unquote, the concepts of alien invasion and time traveling resistance fighters, but twists them in unsuspected ways. The 4-issue series will be written by writers David Marriott, John Barber, Tom Walt, and drawn by Alex Millian. So Tom Barber, not surprised because he's been doing he was doing Transformers. I think he might be doing. Well, he was doing the Transformers book in the last iteration. Somebody else is doing them now because he got a new position with IDW, if I'm not mistaken. So I guess he's still out there writing stuff here and there. So cool. This is coming out in March, so look out for that. Next.
All right, next up, Denton Tipton has been promoted to managing editor of IDW Publishing. In this role, Tipton will oversee the daily operations of the company's editorial department. Good for
him. The Far Side is officially online for the first time with new comics to come. So if you are of a certain vintage, actually, well, yeah, because I think they've been reprinting those in the newspaper, but who reads newspapers nowadays? Yeah, kind of comic strip. Far Side launches a official website. Well, basically on the 17th, but it's already out there at the time of this recording. Which debuted with a selection of classic cartoons, doodles from creator Gary Larson's sketchbooks, and a letter from the cartoonist himself. Despite the strip's cultural ubiquity in the form of books, calendars, and posters, the official website marks the first time the comics will have ever been authorized to be online. The market's 40th anniversary of the strip, which is syndicated from 1980 to 1995, Farside.com will periodically post new comics from Larson in 2020. So fans of the Far Side rejoice, not the rap group.
I was about to say, she keeps on passing me by.
If you weren't going to catch that one, I was too. So yeah, so you were on it. Next up,
Garzilla. A new graphic novel is being released by Boom Studios for everyone's favorite orange cat, Garfield. Garfield Garzilla will tell 3 brand new stories for the cat that taught us all to hate Mondays and love lasagna. The below synopsis is for one of the stories created by Antonio Alfaro and Scott Nickel. Ooh. Cool.
Indeed. And I don't have my Godzilla roar handy, so you're lucky. So,
I do.
There you go. Although Garfield wouldn't be that.
It wouldn't be like that.
So yeah, so new Garfield material. I'm pausing, ecstatic, I'm sure. Jonathan Hickman bringing manners to assassination business with Image's decorum. So Hickman not stopping with the X corner of the universe, is doing his own thing. Writer Jonathan Hickman and artist Mike Huddleston are launching a new creator-owned series this March titled Decorum, scheduled to debut March 11th. Decorum is Hickman's first new creator-owned work since revamping Marvel's X-Line, and teams him up with Huddleston, who created variants for every issue of House of X, basically Hoxpox. So there are many assassinations in the known universe. This is the story of a well-mannered one. Assassins. Reads the Image's description of issue number 1. Manners are a sensitive awareness of the feelings of others. If you have that awareness, you have good manners, no matter what knife you use.
Interesting.
Yeah, actually, kinda. Sure. We'll see what comes of that. And last but
not least, in the realm of fiction turned fact turned fiction, this is some stupid stuff. Someone in the United States State Department decided to add Wakanda, the fictional high-tech African kingdom from the Marvel universe. Stop saying it's the Marvel Black Panther movie, you morons. It's from the Marvel universe.
Well, yeah, it's boing, so you gotta.
I know. Because someone added that to an official list of United States trade partners. Yeah, fictional can't trade with fictional countries, people. So you got to think that
is it fictional and leave it on there. That's what I say. Leave it on there.
You gotta wonder if somebody was just trolling and was like, "Yo, I wonder if some idiot is gonna finally figure out that there's a fake country on this."
Or somebody was like, "Hey, there's a lot of talk about this country." They were around the water cooler. Hey, there's a lot of talk about this country, Wakanda, that's up and coming. They should be out there, and somebody just
unreal. It was actually spotted by someone who was looking to apply for a fellowship and needed some information, doing some research. Oh yeah.
Hey, if let me know if Wakanda's real. I will try to find a way to get over there. That's all I'm saying. But
you would need those coordinates to fly through the barrier. That's the thing.
Yeah, I know, right? Or that's true. But hey, enough people have gotten in there without it to I'm sure there's a way. But yeah, I saw this article and I was like, that almost sounds like an Onion article, but yet there was enough places that picked it up outside of this boing boing. Wow, clear did this actually happen? It was funny when I saw it though. Anyway, we have come to the end of the show, and we get one last ad to read, please, sir.
And you know what we read when we're in a hurry? Keep our podcast free by shopping at Amazon. Visit cspn.us and click the Keep Our Podcast Free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down and click on the Amazon link to shop. Purchase items from Amazon as you normally would, whether it's books, music, electronics, jewelry, apparel, or graphic novels. For every purchase made on Amazon through our link, Amazon sends the CSPN a payment that helps us keep the Comic Book Chronicles podcast free for our listeners at no extra cost to you. Amazon.com through CSPN.us. Do it today.
I normally put up the website to go along with the ad read, but I don't do Amazon's because it would show my Amazon page.
That's okay.
And I don't feel like logging out. So with that, we come to the end of another exciting episode of this here Comic Book Chronicles. Thank you, each and every one of you, for chilling with us tonight. We will be back next week at our regular time on Thursday nights, 9:30 p.m.
Yes, after Christmas. So hopefully everyone has a Merry Christmas.
That is true. Yeah, I guess we are going to do the show since that's the.
It's going to be. We're going to fall on what, the 27th or the 26th?
Yeah, the 26th is next Thursday. So yeah, we'll be out of the way of Christmas. But yeah, like Agent 70 said, have a Merry Christmas. In the meantime, I am Roddykat. You can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can also find me at News and Sneed on Twitter and CB Caps on Instagram. Agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram. Hopefully, we will both be doing some updates on, well, me specifically, but I know he's been updating his Instagram fairly regularly on CB Caps. Anyway, I need to do some stuff. PC_dirt on Twitter, Pop Culture Net on Twitter, popculturenetwork.com, and the sites therein. Tim DOGG98 on Twitter, CB Cron on Twitter. That is the Comic Book Chronicles Twitter account. TheClickNation.com, and of course the Click Nation on Twitter. That's TheKlickNation. And also Comic Book Resources, where he was over there writing his face off. Give that man some clicks and some love. He's doing some good stuff over there. Been branching out too lately. I'm proud of him again, because he's been wearing a couple of other hats on that site. So cool. You can also find this here program on the Coastal of the Podcast Network. That's CSPN.us.
Do it today.
You can also find this podcast and subscribe to at Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and also the Coastal of the Podcast Network's SoundCloud page. Again, we'll be back next weekend. Have a lovely holiday if you celebrate, and don't get into too much trouble if you have a day off. And don't get into trouble. Just rest and relax and relate and release and all that way. We will be back. This has been the Comic Book Chronicles. Peace.
Peace. One.
I love it when a plan comes together.